All right, and folks, this is Frederick Jones, and I'm the founder and publisher of Saturday AM, and you are now watching the March Art Madness 2018 Round 2 review show. If you joined us last week, you know that this is a show where we are going to be looking at about 30 pieces of fan art created specifically for our tournament, which is the ultimate fan art tournament for artists around the world. Saturday AM, if you guys don't know who we are, you can see it on your screen there. We are a digital manga anthology. In fact, we are the world's most diverse digital manga anthology. We feature content from creators all around the world. So unlike, for example, a weekly Shonen Jump, our content features characters and creators with stories that take place from anywhere around the world or any sort of fantasy environment with different ethnicities, different nationalities, different gender, different orientations, just different characters all around. Whereas most manga from Japan, Shueisha, Kodansha, Shogakukan tend to all exist, 99% at least, in Japan. So we just want to try to take the comic book art form and the manga art form in particular and try to broaden this horizons by offering content from creators all over the world. You can see our latest issue here is issue 82, and that's right. We have been doing this for a couple of years now and consistently putting out a superior digital magazine product, which of course includes content like Apple Black from Nigeria's White Manga, Saigami from Hungary's Andrea Voros, Clock Striker which features artwork from both a Filipino artist and a Japanese-American female creator named Michelle Massarolo. And of course, these three fine individuals who will be on this chat today and are some of our newest and most exciting creators are also contributors to Saturday AM, and we will introduce them here in a minute, but they are Jen Chan, who produces Zero, King of Thieves from China. We've got Morgan Walker, who produces Soul Beat from America. We have Anthony Jackson, who along with his partner, Bharat Lunjani, creates a comic called Mutton Chop. And we will introduce them, these creators to you shortly, as they will be our judges this evening. To talk a little bit about March Art Madness, this is a tournament that literally combines some of the greatest aspects of art that exists, which is the ability to create content that we all recognize. If you love Batman, if you love Superman, if you love Goku, if you love Indiana Jones, if you love Gilligan's Island, the idea of geek culture, which of course is happening now all around us, is one of the preeminent ways that many artists find their feet and are able to create content that speaks to them. And from that standpoint, we created this tournament to be able to empower and introduce more diverse voices who are artistic into the realm of comics and or manga. And again, most people tend to find their voice when it comes to creating comics via the method of producing content from geek culture that they recognize. So we took this to a next level. We have creators who are literally competing against each other with themes such as video games or anime or manga that changes every single week. This is round 2, meaning that we've already shed 32 creators. We started the tournament with 64 last week, and after last week's competition and matchups, we now are down to 32. So this is a pivotal week, folks, because in this tournament, we will go through some amazing creators who are battling for their opportunity to stay in the tournament, and next week will be just 16 artists left. Why are they doing all of this? Well, first of all, it's a hell of a competition. It allows them to challenge themselves to be able to do the best they can in terms of challenging their ability to meet deadlines, to draw things they're not typically used to drawing, to step outside of their comfort zone with new ideas and new creative strategies, whether it's color, implementations of design, draftsmanship. This tournament literally challenges every component of the skill set an artist will need to have a professional career in this industry. And they're doing this because not only do they get to have bragging rights to say they're the best fan artist of 2018, but folks, we give away an Apple iPad Pro courtesy of some of the amazing sponsors that we have. We're going to talk about these sponsors in just a minute, but I just want you to see here as we load up our March Madness page here, you can see some of the amazing talent that is on display here. Creators like Kalani Corbett, Terry Vincent Jr., Mohammed Samsime. Sorry, scrolling a little bit too much there. Kiara Reddy from South Africa, Martin Patino from Mexico, Nicholas Gray, David Grant, Barack Sahim, Giro Dejima, Jose El Rodriguez, and the list goes on and on. These are amazing creators who are coming to us literally from all over the world, from Australia to Argentina. And so we're really excited and proud to be doing this tournament for the third year. It's not easy. The creators go through an amazing endurance test to produce 5 original pieces of artwork throughout the length of this tournament if they survive each round. But of course, we give away great prizes, and part of the aspect of the success we've had with this has come from having fantastic partners. You see on your screen right now is Plast, and they are the partner of choice for us as it relates to digital software for creating your comic books. Plast, spelled PLASQ.com. And the product that we have partnered with them on most readily is called Comic Draw. And this is a brand new product that is built to help you create comic books from scratch. So if you don't want to go through the process of having to buy endless amounts of paper, endless amounts of pencils, endless amounts of markers, Comic Draw gives you all of the supplies you would ever need in a digital format. It allows you to not only import your script into their custom application, which then puts it into a custom file that you can then literally tap with your Apple Pencil or your finger and generate the speech bubble that you would need for that character. You can draft, you can draw, you have a perspective guide that helps you lay out the page even better. You can ink, you can color making it look digital color, you can color making it look like it's Copic markers, and then you can even package the whole thing up and distribute it via a service that they have called Comic Connect. Folks, this is really one of the more stunning pieces of software that really empowers creators who are on a budget to enter into the world of creating comics. And we are so proud to partner with Plast and with the software Comic Draw. And we want to tell you now that if you try it, if you've got an Apple iPad, and folks, if you don't have an Apple iPad, it's not the end of the world. You can buy a used one, and the software will work on it. If you have an Apple iPad, you really need to get the software. You got 2 free weeks free before you have to pay to unlock all the features. And folks, the features are only $9.99. That's it. There's no upsell. There's no additional in-app purchase. Just $9.99, and you get endless amounts of paper, endless amounts of pencils, endless amounts of markers, endless amounts of coloring utensils and coloring strategies, a perspective guide, a lettering software program, and tons more features that the software will empower you to do. We love it so much, we did a 5-part series on it with our star artist, White Manga, creator of Apple Black. So again, check out Plast, check out the software. They are a very, very strong partner to Saturday AM and all that we stand for in terms of diversity and discovering new creators. Next up is Illo Sketchbooks. Now, if you do choose to draw in a conventional manner, folks, you want to check out Illo Sketchbooks. Illo Sketchbooks is one of the hippest and most durable sketchbooks you can buy on the market, and not to mention it's quite affordable. This is a really, really cool piece of kit that you can take around with you if you've got an idea you want to jot down, if you want to draw something that inspires you out in nature or in the office place or in your workspace, on your couch. This is one of the best products to be able to purchase for it. It's got 122 pound, it's got over 100 pages. It's got a very high weight in terms of the paper quality that is inherent within. Some very famous artists are using these pads already, folks. So you can't go around with that. Again, it's 122 pound paper stock. And so this is a really, really strong product, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to get the best product for an affordable rate that allow you to draw in a tactile manner without digital components, be able to jot down ideas or sketch out new characters or new landscapes, get an Illo Sketchbook. They are a fantastic new partner of Saturday AM and our March Art Madness tournament. And we hope you'll check them out. You can find them at illosketchbook.com. That's ILLOSKETCHBOOK.com. Last but not least, folks, we know, of course, you want to draw great. You want to create the best character designs you can. You want to learn how to draw feet, how to draw hands, how to draw really cool character designs, faces, you name it. 21 Draw is a brand new both book series and eventual university. Now, eventual because they just had a Kickstarter where they actually earned a lot of money to be able to produce a university. But this is an amazing product, folks. You remember those old how to draw manga books and how to draw comic books? Well, this is this times 10. You've got over 100 famous artists who've contributed to this book, giving you custom ideas or personal ideas in terms of how they are able to create really amazing artwork that a lot of us enjoy. Let me give you some names. Steve Rude, one of the godfathers of modern comic books, really, really extraordinary artist in his own right, coming off of comics like Nexus. He did Superman versus Hulk. He did Batman and Superman, I think it was called Trinity. This is an extraordinary artist. Oh, no, it's called World's Finest, sorry. And this is an extraordinary artist, classic artist. You've also got Ariel Olivetti. If you love some of the recent Marvel comics, some of the big epic Marvel comics in recent years, then you know Ariel Olivetti. Ariel Olivetti is a superstar. He does a lot of beautiful work that's painted. Ariel Olivetti is in this book. Last but not least, again, there's over 100. These are just three that you will recognize. Last but not least is Chamba. Jeffrey Chamba, a.k.a. the Chamba, if you follow him on Instagram. This guy is always blowing up. He's always very personable and open. You can find him on Twitch. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on social media all over the place. He draws a lot of Street Fighter stuff for Udon. This guy rocks, and he's in this book. Now, folks, these books aren't cheap, and so if you're in the tournament, we're actually giving away some of these books. But the bottom line here is that if you love and are looking for some of the best artists in the business to be able to give you advice on how to be able to present or perfect your artwork, well, then you've got the right place here, folks. You've got the right place with 21 Draw. You can find it at www.21-draw. And again, you can just look here at some of the artwork here, and it is extraordinary. Look at the prices on those books, folks. I wasn't joking. Book one, $59. Get both books, it's $100. So that's no small change, folks. So, all right, these are three of our partners. They're what help us make March Art Madness the event that it is, which is one of the most popular art competitions in the world. And folks, it's all for the marbles now because, again, we're giving away an Apple iPad Pro plus Apple Pencil plus some cash plus some of these great prizes you saw to the grand prize winner. Last year's winner was William Puker from Sweden. This year's winner can come from Australia. They could come from America. They could come from Europe. They're all over the place, and we're going to be getting into it right now as we run through which artists we really, really like. Now, we will not announce the winner tonight. We will announce our recommendation of winners, and then you can tune on to the website tomorrow morning, www.saturday-am.com/March Madness, which is probably where you're watching this right now. Tune in tomorrow. And that's where we reveal not just who won, but we reveal what the matchups are for next week, as well as what the themes are. Tonight, however, we'll give you a pretty good guess of who may win because this is the biggest point total that these artists can receive in the tournament comes from the judges. So we actually break up the points that these folks can accumulate to make it fair. It's a really unique process that we go through. We utilize everything from social media to fan votes, which you can vote right now on the website. But we also throw in guest judges and then, of course, the core judges. And today's core judges, I'd like to introduce them to you. Begin with Jin. He is from China. He's the creator of a comic that we have called Zero. And I want Jin to say hello to the folks.
Hello, everyone. Jin here, creator of Zero, King of Thieves, and High School Romance. How's everyone doing? I am very excited to get this going.
And folks, as Jen just mentioned, he's got a comic out now, which you can check out right now. Now, Zero, King of Thieves debuted in issue 74. You can check it out on our website. If you didn't subscribe to it, you can still check out the story. We're going to have it on the website here within the next, I believe, week or so, where you can access it freely without having to get the magazine. But if you do love checking out some really cool free comic books, you can check out High School Romance, which is one of Jim's comics. And Jim, where can they find High School Romance at?
You can find High School Romance on Webtoons just by searching High School Romance or www.highschoolromancecomic.com.
There you go. All right, folks. Next judge we have is Morgan Walker. She is the creator of Soul Beat, which is a really, really, really cool series. It's as funky as it sounds. Morgan, tell everybody hi.
Hi guys. Obviously, many of you, hopefully, many of you guys were at the Q&A last night. Things were learned from that experience, and so I'm really excited to talk to you guys. And I'm the creator of Soul Beat, and this was a really challenging round, so I'm really excited to talk about it tonight. There's some really good entries.
Okay, and next up is Anthony Jackson. Anthony is new. Anthony, tell everyone hi.
Hi, I'm Anthony Jackson, half of the team for Mutton Chop.
So, folks, if you don't know Mutton Chop, this is a really fun and clever, funny animal comic book. You guys know what Funny Animal is. We've all grown up with Funny Animal comics or cartoons. Think Bugs Bunny, think a regular show for more recent stuff. And Mutton Chop is kind of like the best regular show meets or Simpsons, or really anything meets One Punch Man. It's a really funny concept about a sheep who's super strong. He doesn't know he's very strong, and he's kind of like a kind of hillbilly type figure. But it's really, really well illustrated, and it's got some really, really clever gags in it. And definitely check it out. Again, we'll have all three of these series having their first installments or their short stories available for free on the website in the next week or so. All right, with that being said, you've met all of our folks. We're about to get started. I apologize for letting that screen zip around here, but I'm trying to get things moving. This is round 2, folks. Now, what we do is we take all of our artists, we break them up into 4 teams, because when you've got so many artists, we've got to break them up and put them into groups where they can match up against each other in certain quadrants. That allows us to manage this much, much better. So, with that being said, the very first team we're going to go to is Team C. And in Team C, for round 2, their theme that they had to do was based on Hanna-Barbera. Now, if you're looking on the screen, you can see here that this is, again, Hanna-Barbera. Hanna-Barbera, classic American cartoon studio. They produce some of the all-time iconic 1970s American cartoons that, frankly, have persisted and exist all over the world as strong as, in some cases, stronger than a lot of the manga and anime that so many of us tend to love. Scooby-Doo is a universal international icon, so as is the Flintstones and other characters. So this is an amazing studio, and what we asked this team to do is take any classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon from Scooby-Doo to Flintstones, from Johnny Quest to Space Ghost, and everything in between, and depict them as modern versions. So this is utilizing the skill set of taking an existing character design and having to modify it. We were going to give them additional 10 extra points. So this could really sway whether or not someone, a really close match, someone's able to advance versus the other, versus the other artist, if they chose to modernize these designs in the form of anime or manga. So with that being said, we're going to get right into it. So what I will do here is we will announce the matchup. We will open up the screen so you can see the core series, the core artwork from the first artist. We'll discuss it, and then we'll move to the second artist who they're matched up against. We'll discuss that, and then we will give our feeling at the end of tonight's presentation as to which artist was stronger overall, who got the most votes out of all of this. So with that being said, let's begin with CJ Okinwa. CJ Okinwa versus Longelini Vimba. So CJ Okinwa right here, this is a piece of Scooby-Doo. You can see the main characters here. I guess that's Fred in the front saying heads up gang. This app says the monster is somewhere nearby. So he's modernizing it and throwing in the anime feel to it. Let's start with you, Anthony. What did you think of this piece?
I find it funny that there's an app that can tell you where there's a monster nearby.
That's a good point.
They're going to be pretty screwed when the monster shows up right behind them, and they're all too busy on their phones.
What did you think of the art?
Like, well, I do like the designs. For the most part, the face on Fred, like it looks a little too flat for him realizing that, hey guys, there's a monster nearby. That's I would like to see a bit more concern or maybe even some confidence because he's the leader. But that looks more like dull surprise.
Okay, so that's all. That's what you got. All right. So, Jen, what did you think?
So I really dig the character designs for this piece. I also really like Daphne and Velma like doing their selfie in the background. The subtitles are a nice touch, so it looks like anime. I think overall though the artwork is a little bit stiff, and the faces are a little wonky, and I think that's because the artist CJ, he isn't flipping his artwork. I know he works digitally, and so he should mirror his artwork and see what it looks like from the mirror image, and then they'd straighten up his faces. But I think the character designs are really strong.
Very good. Morgan, what do you think?
I have to agree. I like the interpretation or the modern interpretation. Again, the technology that the characters are using, very modern. I would say that part of the technical problems are maybe the background and some of the shading. It does have that appearance of being flat, but I think the background is maybe the weakest point of this piece.
Okay, all right. Great comments. I'm with Jen on this a great deal. I think, look, I mean, this is, as I said at the start of this presentation, we'll talk about this all night tonight, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, the core thing that always matters about this tournament is that it challenges the artists in all the various skill sets that matter. Does this artist succeed in terms of backgrounds? Of course not. This is a flat background. Did it succeed in terms of perspective? Of course not. The perspective doesn't really seem to make a great deal of sense. Some of the characters seem out of frame to each other. What does he draw? Anatomy very well. Very stiff. I mean, the Daphne's arm looks kind of weird, and Shaggy, even though he looks pretty good, his leg just seems kind of weird the way it's kind of bent as he's walking. Very stiff. This artist is very stiff, and I agree with Jen. I don't know if he's all digital or what, but this artist has a very stiff style. Let's not get into Scooby-Doo. That's probably the worst Scooby-Doo I've ever seen. That being said, the character designs, the idea behind what the characters are supposed to be doing shows a sense of personality, a sense of understanding character, shows a fantastic sense of modernizing these characters. Shaggy's look is fantastic. Fred's look is not bad. Daphne and Velma stay the same relatively much, but I really, really like the fact that he gave real thought in how Shaggy looked, and it both made sense and still stayed within the realm of what Shaggy is. Same with Fred. I think Fred kind of also has a look that would strike you as an anime version of Fred from Japan. So all in all, I think this piece has a lot of strengths to it. Clearly has some great weaknesses, but has a lot of strengths as well. I think the strengths are worth celebrating. Okay, so next up, their competitor is Langelini Vimba, also doing Scooby-Doo. Morgan, what do you think of this?
I think with Langelini's style, the character designs or the way that she interpreted these characters were really fun. And again, they look very interesting. This could be a really interesting show. The tie-ins with other anime and manga series being brought into the show is kind of cool. I think the Daphne's arm is it's kind of weird. I understand that that's kind of a difficult perspective. She's doing the selfie shot with all of her friends. But then there's also the lighting. I kind of like the rough line work. Again, it's part of her style, but then the lighting, the glow effects from the flash are but overall, this is a really, really fun piece. I love the interpretation of these characters.
Okay. Anthony, what do you think?
I'm in love with the designs, especially Shaggy, because you made him look like a badass, though. I don't see this Shaggy as a coward. And I like is Scooby part Schnauzer in this? Like part giant Schnauzer?
I don't know.
For the most part, this is all very fun. I wouldn't I do see around the camera flash. There's these two kind of sunspots there, like not sunspots, but glows there. I would have turned those down a little bit, but for the most part, the designs, even Fred, like this is a very, very fun picture.
Yeah, okay. And Jim, what do you think?
I also really dig the character designs for this picture, and the composition is really strong. Yeah, Daphne's arm looks a little weird, but it doesn't really take away anything from me. The only weird thing is the flash from the camera, from the phone. It's obviously like glowing on their arm, and so what happens is they've lightened up the line work near Velma's neck and Shaggy's arm there, and it looks like this weird arm is coming out of Velma's neck, and Daphne's arm is turning into Velma. So I think that choice was a weird choice there, and it's a little bit hard to see what's going on. I thought there was just I thought there was a ghost arm coming from Velma, but it was actually Shaggy. But other than that, very strong. I really like the coloring, the character designs, very cool.
Yeah, so I think the character designs here are fantastic. I totally agree. I don't see any issue with the character designs. They're strong. In fact, you can make the argument that this is a far more dynamic character redesign than what CJ Okimwa did. CJ Okimwa essentially kept Daphne and Velma identical. You can say he modernized them, but really didn't. This is not your normal Daphne. This is not your normal Velma. This is not your normal Shaggy. This is not your normal Fred. I mean, this is a true ground up reworking of the characters. I love the fact that he stayed in to the same notion of making the character, making Daphne be more, into the selfie thing and so forth, as would be her character if you modernize it. I don't know the Flash. I think the Flash is not. I think the color here is probably the poorest thing. As I said last week, I think CJ Okimwa is really good at color, and I'm not sure Longellini did himself any favors here taking the risk that he did with the Flash, because the Flash here this image does not look great, in my opinion, because of the Flash. And for all the reasons we've talked about, there's some weird line work he's got going on that the Flash kind of either hides it or makes it worse. There's this weird thing going on with Scooby, which I don't know, to Anthony's point, I don't know what that's going on with Scooby, where he's got these white splotches. But in terms of just, trying to do something different, really trying something different with the character designs, offering some character pieces here that works, I think it's good. So yeah, all in all, though, this is, in my opinion, a strong piece. And it's interesting, two creators doing Scooby-Doo. So last week we had a lot of people doing Nintendo and Batman and all those various things. This week appears to be Scooby-Doo, at least in this first team. So, okay, so this is an interesting setup for what we've got here. Next up, staying with the Scooby-Doo thing, we now move to Amber Valdez Council. Now, Amber Valdez Council is the winner from last week. She had a really strong showing last week with a really dynamic-looking piece. This week, she is really in for it. She's got a great competition going on. And she is up against, let's see who she's up against here. She is up against Jacqueline Renee. So let's go to Morgan. Let's go with you. Let's start with you. What do you think of this piece?
I think technically, obviously drawn very well. Although I think the shading is maybe dark, some softer shading, or like green almost, from the far left side to the back. I actually like what's going on in the bubble a lot more. This selfie with the monster in the background, I think that's a little bit more interesting for what she could have maybe drawn as the main piece. But otherwise, I thought this was pretty good.
All right. Okay. Anthony, what did you think?
I agree with Morgan about how it's very well drawn. Like, love the costume designs. Simple. Does play into classic design, just modern it up a bit, and I love the whole I do love the monster design and just creeping up behind them, like kind of makes me wish that Shaggy and Scooby were freaking out though.
Yeah. Okay, and Jim, what do you think?
Okay, so I think this picture is stronger than her image from last week. I really like it.
I was
And
the same thing, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The character design is really good, and I actually really like the storytelling. Like, we know that the selfie was taken, and now, yeah, it's a really good storytelling. So it's really wonderful. Morgan brought up a really good point of the shading. It is very dark, and so the back of the characters are sort of bleeding into the background. And I think what could have helped with that is if Amber added some rim lighting, so like a little line of light behind the characters, just to, you know, stop them from bleeding into the background. But I think it's a very strong picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember seeing this, and so it's funny. I thought the same thing that Jen said. You know, I looked at this and compared it to her piece last week. Her piece last week was fantastic. This is a far stronger piece, and I think the one thing I can say about this piece and last piece, look, as I said about C.J. Okinwa, look, if C.J. Okinwa, as I just talked about, if I think he's a very good colorist, and I think he's a very good colorist, I think he handles flats very well. Amber Valdez Council destroys him. I think her coloring is so dynamic, so visceral, so energetic. If you don't know what we're talking about, go check out her Shonen Jump or manga style piece from round 1. She does color great. Her blues pop and her oranges pop, and I mean, she's such a good colorist. There's some stiffness to this piece. I think that I remember looking at this, and then like Shaggy is like positioned differently after the selfie. I do love that every creator so far who's chosen to do Daphne has chosen to do her with the selfie. Doesn't speak well of Daphne's character. I also didn't like Shaggy here. I thought from a redesign standpoint, I didn't care for the character designs here as much. I didn't think there was a lot here that looked modern. Shaggy, in fact, looks young and far more CW. For those of you who live in the U.S., looks far more CW than what I would imagine Shaggy to look like. But that being said, the piece, the idea behind the piece, the coloring of the piece, minus the shading, which I totally agree on, and just the overall energy of the piece is just so strong. This is a really, really strong work. Again, her opponent is Jacqueline Renee. And let's move to Jacqueline Renee's piece. Once again, doing Scooby-Doo. And Jim, why don't we start with you? What do you think?
I think this is a really fun piece, and I really like the composition. And I think it captures the feeling of the show quite well, the Hanna-Barbera show. It's also a bit dark, a lot like Amber, and I think a lot of some better rim lighting would help with that as well. Though I think the thing that keeps distracting me is, why is Fred pointing off screen, like completely unrelated? I think it would have been stronger if Fred was somehow maybe pointing back at the monster and telling them to go back or something like that. But yeah, overall, I think it's very fun. It's a very fun piece. All
right. Morgan, what did you think?
I agree. It came out very dark. I do appreciate the incorporation of the glow from the monster. It ties it together, with what's going on in the scene. I also appreciate the action that's going on, and also the fact that every character starts behaving as you would expect. And with the redesigns, that you've got Shaggy being scared, and Fred being bold, and Daphne also kind of being bold in some way. So I think it's an interesting interpretation, but I think maybe the coloring was perhaps the weakest part of this.
Okay, and Anthony, what did you think?
Agreeing with the other two, that it's an energetic and a fun piece to look at. Like, I do like the glow would have turned up, would have gone a bit more easier on the shadows, though, so the characters are a bit more easier to see. Because at some points they do kind of blend in with the background, like around Daphne's arm and hair, like kind of blends into the background because of the green glow. But for the most part, this is still a fun piece.
Yeah, I think this is a fun piece. I concur with everybody. I think I think I have to be a little bit more critical than I think everyone here was. There's a lot of stiffness here, which is amazing because there's a lot of energy in this piece. There's a lot of stiffness here. Fred's arm, again, I forgot who suggested it, but his arm is pointing. You don't quite know why. It's not staged in a way to where his pointing is giving any real, there's no momentum from him pointing. It just looks kind of stiff. It just looks like, she was looking for him to do something. And so he's got his arm out, yelling at them to run, I guess. But, the perspective doesn't work. I mean, is he far behind them? Is he, that piece would really work if he were in the foreground, and like in classic Marvel Comics fashion, he's got his finger directly into the reader's face saying, run! And then, the other guys are behind him running. That's how you would do that piece, particularly given the fact that this monster is coming out of the ground. I can't, the way the monster is drawn, I can't tell if the monster's close, I can't tell if the monster's far away. The crack looks like it literally is right there next to them, but the way the crack moves, you would think the crack is going backwards, and this is basically stretching from the foreground to the background. The monster's coming from the background. This is not, this is a problem with this piece. The perspective just really doesn't work in this piece at all, and therefore it kills the momentum of the piece. The energy is there with the characters, no question. The redesigns aren't really a thing here because, again, it's not, this artist is still needs to work on anatomy and things like that. I mean, Shaggy's foot, for example, is just all kinds of crazy. I will give Jacqueline credit for two things. One, best damn Scooby-Doo in the mix of what we got here. I mean, this is the most complete, actual-looking dog out of all the other versions that we saw, and that's, saying something. And then two, again, the idea of this piece is fantastic. The execution, I can't say is nowhere, does it justice at all, but the idea of this piece is fantastic. The idea of a ghost, cracking maybe from like a cemetery or something like that, coming after them. This really could have been quite a stellar piece. The coloring, yes, is problematic, but again, I think the perspective is what makes the coloring also not work, because the perspective is so flawed that the coloring doesn't really, again, for that green to be lighting them up and causing the issues that Jen and Morgan are talking about, well, then that green has to literally be right upon them. And the way this is framed, there's no way that this looks like these characters are, that they're moving in the way they should be moving. Just zero. There's no sense of who's in front, who's in back. Just drawing someone over someone else is not perspective. That's just hiding any issues that are there. So, yeah, like I said, I thought this was a fun piece for sure. I think the shortcomings of the artist in this case, which, again, the ideas are there, and this artist has talent, there's no question. But the shortcomings, I think, are too much for this piece to really compete on the levels that it needs to. All right, so next up, we have Charles Williams versus Malcolm Prince. And now these are two out of, what is this, two rounds we've had thus far, and two matchups we've had, I mean. This matchup is the first one to not feature Scooby-Doo. If you guys knew Galaxy Trio, this is kind of like a Fantastic Four sort of concept that Hanna-Barbera had in the 60s. They had a series of space type of shows, including the Great Space Ghost. And this was one of the more obscure ones, featuring three characters. One who was kind of super strong and could stretch. Another one was a girl who I think she turned, I can't remember exactly what her power, force fields. And then the other one was a guy who was kind of gassy and misty, which is kind of like a combination of Human Torch and Invisible Woman, as was the girl, kind of like a combination of Invisible Woman with her forceful powers. Really cool group. This is what Charles Williams did. Charles Williams did a great piece last week featuring Afro Samurai versus Samurai Champloo. Let's start off with you, Anthony. What did you think of this piece?
I love the lighting on it and the character designs. I had to really look into what it was going for, because before I had never heard of Galaxy Trio, but this was enough to get me interested in the characters themselves.
Okay. Okay. All right. Jen, what did you think?
Okay, so I really like the character art. The character art is really, really, really cool. For me, the background is got a little to be desired. It's a little boring and a little bit of a nothing, and also like this rock that this big guy is holding in the front. It's very hard to see what it is.
I don't think he's holding the rock, by the way, but
yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but like the coloring is good. I guess I'm a little disappointed because like how dynamic Charles's artwork was last round, and this is a very static, just standing pose. So I think that's disappointing me a little, but the character art is strong. Okay,
Morgan, what did you think?
I definitely agree. I think that the anatomy of these characters is very well done. I think there's still some, kind of flaws here and there, but considering the detail that was done in the rest of the characters, the lighting is good. The coloring of the characters themselves, that's the strongest part of this piece. The background is definitely there's much to be desired, as Jen said. The planet I'm not so worried about because it's in the distance, but whatever's going on in the front is not working. That is not good.
Well, I disagree with all of you guys. I think this is probably one of the stronger pieces I've seen tonight. I think the character artwork here is better than anything we've seen tonight thus far. I usually am on board with Jen. I don't know what Jen was talking about with the rock. They're clearly are standing on the rock. This is a rock he's standing on. He's got his hand on one rock. He's standing on the other part of the rock because he can stretch. And so I think he was trying to show that the character can stretch. I don't like the fact that he gave so much room to the bottom of this so that he could put the logo in there. But based on what happened last week, where so many creators gave us material that we did not know what they were doing, I totally understand why he did that. The background, this is if you ever saw the show, the backgrounds are kind of remote like this, just kind of space and moon in the background, so on and so forth. I know this is one of the best picks we've seen. I mean, the character, look, folks, the character work alone is better than, I mean, come on. The character work alone is better than just about anything you've seen thus far. So, in fact, not even kind of. The character art, I mean, Longelini Vemba, Amber Valdez, none of them have the sheer, I mean, this is just absolutely detailed work. And not only that, but then his coloring that he did on this piece, where you can actually make out some of the muscle definition because of the color, where he's able to subtly highlight some things. I don't know what y'all talking about. This is one of the best pieces we've seen today. He's up against Malcolm Prince. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were we gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, I just to add a few more comments. The only problem I had with it is the background, and in terms of the foreground, like the detail that he put into the characters, and then the background that he has at the same scale and the same location as those characters. It just lacked so much definition. It just seems like that was the last thing he got to, and he rushed. Again, whatever was going on in the space background, that was also fine because you're talking about something that's far away. It's just it seemed very rushed, or it seemed very unfinished in the foreground. So I agree. I thought the character design and the line work and the definition of those characters was really good. It's just that whatever was going on in the front, that to me is kind of what set me off.
Fair enough.
I might have worded my way wrong, but like I love the character art as well. Like that's what got me interested in Galaxy Trio in the first place. Like I wouldn't be into it without this picture. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Malcolm Prince is the opponent here. He did a cartoon called Herculoids. This is one of my favorite animated shows from Hanna-Barbera. I don't know if many of the young people who read Saturday AM and follow Saturday AM remember this, but this was one of my all-time favorites, featuring characters named Glick and Gloop. I mean, this thing was awesome. It was because it's kind of like Smith Family Robinson, with a family that gets stranded in space in a very, very wild and rough terrain. And they basically domesticate these animals to basically raise their child. And so, the husband was kind of like, your He-Man type. The son was really cool. He rode on the back of this Tyrannosaur. If you guys saw Black Panther with the rhinos, he rides on the back of this Tyrannosaur that can fire missiles from his snout. They had a dragon. They had this big rock monster character who was kind of lovable. And then they had these two squishy things called Bliss and Blue. This was such a kick-ass show. This was such a kick-ass cartoon. And this really brought back memories for me. I'll go first here and just say that, look, this is a strong piece. Is it as strong as Charles Williams? In my opinion, no. But it's got a closeness to it, because I think in this piece we're seeing what I think lacked in Jacqueline Renee's piece and the C.J. Okimwa's piece. We're seeing the use of perspective. So these are characters that are not all standing next to each other, and yet each of the characters, there's plenty of definition to the characters, plenty of perspective so that the characters look clear as to what they're doing, while the other character can still be given their moment in the background. This is a normal standard technique, particularly for movie posters and things of that nature. And this is done so well, in my opinion. The thing here that I don't like or don't speak to or like as much is just the roughness of the line work. This line work is really rough. It was hard for me to tell if this is what the creator was going for, because Herculoids has a very Jack Kirby feel to it. For all I know, it was designed by Jack Kirby, but it has a very Jack Kirby feel. If you guys know the classic Marvel Comics artist, the cartoon does. This seems to be so rough that it made me think kind of Jack Kirby, but it ultimately doesn't work for me because it's so rough, because it looks unfinished. It looks kind of sloppy. Some of the color work, some of the line work. There's a piece where I think the kid's name is Jace, maybe. I can't remember exactly what his name is, the son, but he's got his arm up next to Igloo, the rock creature, and his arm just kind of blends in with the rock character. There are moments like this. There are other moments where he's trying to color and he just kind of colors outside of the line. So there's a sloppiness of this, and I'm not suggesting that this was not part of the creator's plan, but whether it was or not, you know, folks, when you're creating content as a professional artist, you really cannot let the audience set the expectation. You have to set the expectation. And I think in this case, he's leaving too much for me to look at and go, was this planned or was this not planned? This looks like it wasn't planned. This looks sloppy. And thus it makes me feel less enamored with the piece, even though I love it from a nostalgia standpoint. Let's go to you, Morgan. What did you think?
Just real quickly. So I've been seeing comments in our chat in YouTube. Have you been able to hear what I've been saying?
Well, I told you it kind of goes in and out. Yeah, I was telling you that.
Okay, I know. I just wanted to make sure because I'm as close to my computer as I can get. So I'll try to figure that out. But for my commentary, I mean, I agree. I thought that the perspective, I thought the number of characters that were involved, I don't know too much about this show. I've recognized it, but this tells me a lot about it by having so many of these characters and showing, you know, what they're about and having such a dynamic kind of scene being set up. And again, the line work was, there's much to be desired, but I think that what he was trying to do with perspective and the layout of this, the composition, I think is really good.
Anthony, what did you think?
Well, I'm interested. Like, the most I knew about all of this, like, this story was just a Family Guy joke, but from seeing it, like, if I saw like the character concepts on paper, I wouldn't think it would work. But seeing them together, like, this works like some kind of bizarre family photo. Like, my only big critique would be to move to move the dinosaur a bit more into the center to see like a little bit more of what he's firing out of his snout. But and I do kind of like the rough line art because it gives me an indie comics kind of feel, because like you mentioned Jack Kirby before, but like you. This is very fun and intriguing for someone who likes something weird.
Okay, well, all right, Jim, what did you think?
Okay, so I want to echo what everyone has said. The composition of this piece is very, very strong. I like where everybody is placed. Everybody looks cool. Yes, the line work is holding this back a lot, and it looks like to me, it looks like they were sketching the line work out, and then they didn't ink it, and so they just, oh, well, I'll just make it as dark as possible, and then try and work with that. And it really holds the piece back, and I wish they went with cleaner line work, but the composition is very strong.
Okay. All right. So, folks, we know that there's some issues with the audio. We apologize for that. As you guys have followed our channel for some time, you follow Saturday for some time, you know that we are a small company. We're growing rapidly. We've been very blessed to have so many fans around the world. But, you know, we keep it real. I don't try to sugarcoat anything. So, you know, we're using Google Hangouts for this. We've got creators from all over the world. Jen chats with us from China. He's on a VPN. Morgan is chatting with us from her home. She just got a new place with internet access. And Anthony, probably in a dormitory or something like that. But, you know, so it's difficult. I'm on Google Fiber in my home, so I know my internet's fine. It's not an issue on my end. But I'm hearing the disruptions from some of our judges when they talk. So all we ask you to do is bear with us. We'll try to clean up some of the issues in post if we can. What I will ask the judges to do is just kind of keep it simple, kind of leave the jokes or anything aside, and just really keep your comments down to just basic stuff. Like, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like, and keep it really, really simple. I haven't had or heard any issues on my end, but I have heard in my earpiece, and I've got a headpiece in, which means I can hear it even better. I'm certainly hearing loss of audio for some of our judges. So we're going to try to perfect it a little bit. Just please bear with us. Again, what I will try to do, and judges, if you may, If we get to our break, which will happen after the next team, we'll take a 5 to 10 minute break. If the problems are persisting, I would just request that you maybe summarize your notes, summarize your thoughts like in a basic like bullet point, and then just send me the bullet point. That way, after you speak, I can summarize it a little bit better. All right. So that being said, we're going to keep rolling. We're going to keep running here. Let's see here. Next up, we have Gary Lytle and Keone Pinckney. Now, this is the last matchup of Team C, folks. The last matchup of Team C. Gary Lytle has Scoob's Mysterious Adventure, Snack Dust Creators. So you guys can see here, this is a literal fun approximation of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Scooby-Doo with JoJo as Scooby, and Shaggy. I take it. I don't know if that's Shaggy, but Shaggy as his familiar or stand called Star Platinum. I'm going to reserve what I think about this. Let's go to Anthony first. Anthony, what did you think?
I thought this was fun. I thought this was great. Like, though for a piece like this, I wouldn't have gone with tradition. With tradition, I would have gone more digital because of how like if I want to go with the JoJo reference, I'd go all the way. Like, I do wish the shading was a bit more harsh on some parts. Like, I want to see like a darn near photorealistic Scooby to where like you can see the definition in the cheekbones. And I laugh at how Shaggy's the stand, but this was a fun piece, and I just keep on loving it.
Jim, what do you think?
Okay, so I dig the concept of this piece, and I still really like Gary Lytle's line work. I think it's very confident. But he does draw faces very, very chubby. And Shaggy is supposed to be a very skinny character, and so that's taken a lot away from me. But I think Scooby looks fine.
All right, and Morgan, what do you think?
I love this the first moment I saw it, and I think that Gary Lytle learned a lot from the last round, where the background is it's more defined, even though it's the logo. It has a lot of character to it, and it goes back to what JoJo is about, these really vibrant colors and designs. I think that Scooby could have had some stronger line work to help him stand out in front of Shaggy. But I love the interpretation. I actually appreciate more that it's the original Scooby in this, in the outfit of JoJo. So I thought that this piece was really fun, and I don't mind the traditional. I think Gary does a really good job with shading. It really helps his work stand out.
Yeah, I first of all, I think all these were great comments, and I'm kind of torn. I don't find this nearly as clever as Anthony did. I think this is kind of a silly idea that doesn't particularly strike me as humorous or even clever. So from an idea standpoint, I have no love for this. I think this is kind of silly, and I mean, to be frank, I think it's kind of stupid. That said, I couldn't agree with Morgan more. I think this is the real definition of his line work is great. I think his color work is or not necessarily color work, but his shading is really good. I think that the color here, I'll just say the other thing too. I think the color really doesn't give me any sort of love for this piece, because the color just doesn't. It kind of fits, but then it also kind of doesn't. And so it's like I don't know why. Like, this piece probably could have, in my opinion, been saved by either having just straight flat cover a la CJ Okimwa, or having a bit more dynamic range with it, real sharp digital sort of color like Amber Valdez Council. For me, just like this color look just doesn't give this any heat whatsoever. It just kind of looks more it looks like a coloring book image with like really loose coloring book color, and so this piece doesn't speak to me as I'd like. That said, there's a lot here that I do appreciate. I appreciate the fact that he was able to blur in a absolutely accurate looking Scooby-Doo, the best Scooby-Doo we've seen in the entire matchups this week so far for this particular Hanna-Barbera theme. The best Scooby-Doo, hands down. The Star Platinum doesn't look very good to me. But I mean, the arm is really thin. I mean, the guy's head is huge. The arm is thin. So like, there's a lot here that doesn't work. But by and large, again, there's a lot here that I do like in terms of actual skill sets. I love the perspective of Scooby's finger. It matches with his body. It doesn't look out of place. So there's so much here that I actually like. I just think the idea is really kind of stupid. I think the color was not helpful at all. So, it's interesting. This is up against County Pinckney. County Pinckney last week had a really interesting piece that had some fantastic color use, kind of like Amber Valdez Council. And so this is County's work here, and it's got Jetsons versus Flintstones. Take it away, Morgan. What'd you think?
I like the design of the characters. I think that they're very strong. Like, it really kind of speaks to, interpreting them as anime characters. I like the sort of 3-panel scene. Again, it adds to the dynamism of this battle between the Jetsons and the Flintstones. I think some of the coloring is maybe a little too much. Maybe it could have been toned down a little bit in terms of the effects or the lighting. But otherwise, I thought that this was a really kind of interesting and dynamic piece between these two shows.
All right. And so what did you think, Jen?
I really liked what they were trying to do with this piece, but for me, it doesn't quite work. It's really unclear what's happening to me. Like, is it charging up the gun? Is the gun shooting?
Right.
If that's the case, wouldn't have shot him already?
Mm.
And then also, last week, we noticed that he was doing a lot of clouds, and it seems like there's just a cloud there to cover Fred's legs, just so he doesn't have to draw them. That's what it looks like to me. So it's really unclear, which I think is a shame, because I really liked his piece last week.
Anthony?
Me, I do like the framing of the scene, but for the longest time I was wondering what those clouds were doing down there too. And I would like for him to go a bit darker, not as bright on the laser shot, because it somehow looks like it's firing and charging at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And another note, I couldn't tell if that was a boulder on the first look.
Right.
I can now.
Right. Yeah. I share everyone's thoughts on this. I think this was a piece that, so unlike the opponent here, in this case, Gary Lytle, I think, both of these are flawed pieces. Gary's piece, I think, is flawed. I think this piece is flawed. I think that what Keanu was trying to do here was a worthy idea. This is something that too few creators do. If you're in a fan art competition, you got 5 weeks and 5 rounds to go. Try different things. Sometimes what they try is so ridiculously hard. This is a scenario where he's basically presenting us a comic panel, a comic page, and giving us 3 panels. And that's, I remember Miles O'Brien, our first year, did that brilliantly in one of his weeks, and he won the whole tournament the first year. Gun charge thing aside, whether or not he's charging it or firing it, I think that the best point made here, I think, was from Jen, and that's just simply, I don't know what the hell is happening here. I don't know what in the hell is supposed to be happening here. They're fighting. Fred Flintstone has a boulder, which is obscured quite a bit per Anthony. Fred Flintstone is screaming "Yabba Dabba Doo." You can actually see this as part of the thing here. If he was meant to try to do some sort of manga anime thing, well, there are a gazillion ways you could have done this, all in this one page, to sell the fact that Fred's got a boulder and George has a laser. There are ways you could have framed this a lot better. So from a framing perspective, this is pretty bad. The idea is great. The idea is far better than the Scooby-Doo idea that Gary Lytle had. But it's great. Just think about it. Let's just stop for a second and appreciate the idea. Jetsons versus Flintstones. Fucking great. Great. End of story. Best idea. But that being said, though, the execution here is so flat and falls so flat. And I think, and this is a good example of sometimes your ambition can get the best of you if you're not really focused on how to tell it. I get the impression County thought, man, what's a great idea? Jetsons versus Flintstone. And he's right. This is a brilliant idea. And he rested on the fact that he had a good idea. So again, this is something for us to really look at. For me, I like the color. I'm not at all concerned about the yellow flash. I think the yellow flash is dynamite. The color work is great. County's color work last week was fantastic. But I even like the just the design of George Jetson and the design of Fred Flintstone. But again, what hurts this piece is framing. The framing here is pretty bad. The execution is not great, and so you got two images here in this particular matchup: Gary Lytle and County Pinckney. Two pieces here. Both of them have really questionable pieces of execution. Both of them have concepts that either are really brilliant and executed badly, or really strange and executed in some ways great, but the idea is so silly that it doesn't quite save it. This will be an interesting one to see who comes out on top, but I think both of them have pros and a lot of cons. All right, folks, that is Team C. So just to recap, in Team C, we had CJ Okinwa versus Longelini Vimba, both of them choosing to do Scooby-Doo. Next up, we had Amber Valdez Council versus Jacqueline Renee, both of them choosing to do Scooby-Doo. We had Charles Williams versus Malcolm Prince, them both doing something different. One doing Galaxy Trio, a classic 1960s Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and Malcolm Prince doing The Herculoids, a classic 1960s cartoon. 1 second, folks. All right. So and then we have Gary Lytle's piece, which was a Scooby-Doo meets JoJo's Bizarre Adventure versus County Pinckney, who had Jetsons versus the Flintstones. Now, we've given you our thoughts about each one of these. We will reveal who we all thought was the winner of these individual matchups at the end of tonight's presentation. But now we're going to go to Team B, and we're going to take a break after we do Team B. We'll take a short 5 to 10 minute break, and we'll do some pee time and get some coffee and all those good things. You can go do some pee time too, folks. And we'll kind of try to reboot our computers and stuff like that. But we'll do that after this next team. We have 4 teams tonight. All right, Team B. This theme was Nintendo versus Capcom. It's a fighting game. So it's about Nintendo versus Street Fighter characters in Mortal Kombat. Not bloody, not gory, folks. Just Mortal Kombat type stuff. And then you got a bonus if you had them actually doing a super move. You got 10-point extra bonus. We saw a Nintendo character with a Street Fighter style super move, or vice versa, Street Fighter characters as Nintendo characters, so on and so forth. So this is a really cool matchup. We got some great entries in this one, and we're going to get started. Anthony, did you have something to say?
About this next piece?
No, you said something before I got finished. Do you have anything to add? Or?
Oh, no.
Okay. All right, well, then let's get started. So our first matchup is Elijah Alexander. Now, Elijah Alexander is going up against Rashard Milhouse. So this first piece here, Elijah Alexander, this is a lot of Street Fighter style throwdown action. Luigi, Mario, and so on. So why don't we get right into it? Anthony, what do you think of this piece?
This piece was pretty fun for me. I love the muscular Bowser, and it kind of looks more JoJo than the JoJo pick from before. But I love how they got Luigi doing the Tatsumaki Cayenne Kyaku, and Mario Shoryuken down there. Well, I do like the anatomy. The line art for me does look while I do like how it does change in the weight, I don't know, it's something about part of it does look kind of off to me. I don't know what it is.
All right, Jim, what did you think?
Okay, so really, really cool composition, super dynamic. I really like it. Anthony was bringing us a little bit. The line work, it seems like Elijah is drawing this without pen pressure sensitivity on, so all the line work just stays constant, and it just it makes it really flat, which is a shame. And I think there's Robin and Fox in the background, and I feel like they could have been used a bit more. They sort of just feel like they're just kind of there, but the rest of it I really, really dig.
All right, Morgan, what did you think?
So I agree. I think the composition is very interesting, that there's a lot of action going on with the characters. I think the strongest point or part of it is Mario v. Bowser. I thought that was such a dynamic pose that I wish I could have seen more of it. Mm-hmm. It's problematic to have a Wario, like I don't mind that it's Wario, but it's problematic to have that character taking up almost a quarter of the page in the foreground, even though, it's part of this dynamic scene. I just think that it covered up a lot. And again, some of the characters are just kind of in the background, doing their own thing. The one thing that I'm just now noticing that I can really appreciate is the Kirby in the background. I thought that's kind of an interesting touch. But overall, I think line work could have been stronger. Anatomy was good, but that character in the foreground I think is really distracting for me.
Yeah, I echo that entirely. The Wario, which I didn't even know it was Wario, I just knew it was one of the Mario gazillion characters, just killed this piece for me. It literally killed this piece for me because it's so badly framed. It's kind of like the piece we talked about from Jacqueline Renee with Scooby-Doo, and they were all running, and you could tell what she was trying to do there, but the perspective was so bad that you really couldn't, you couldn't honestly say this creature is 5 miles away, 2 feet behind. There's, the perspective didn't make sense. Was Fred standing on a mountain? Why was he pointing off camera? They were all running different directions. Like it literally had nothing made sense about the layout of the page. And this is a good example where this actually makes a lot of sense about the layout of the page, except for Wario. He has no place in this, 0 place in this. And to Jen's point, or whoever said, I forget who said this, but whoever brought up the Mario versus Bowser, which is obviously Ryu versus Bison, whoever brought up the fact that is the money part of this, then added to, and then in conjunction as well with the fact that you've got Kirby in the background. This is an example, and I talked about this in design a lot, and I talked about this last week. We have some fantastic designers. One of the things that makes Saturday so special is we have built a really crack design team. Jonathan Tyler Kami Afalabe, anchored by Raven Brown. We've had people in the past like Wally Wynn and Elise Larte and so on. And a lot of people I just can't remember all their names. I make this point to designers all the time. You've got to know when to do what thing. And I always compare this to clothes. Design is like knowing how to dress. You can throw on that plaid shirt and be really stylish. But if you decide that you want to wear some bright yellow pants and some super sharp fire truck red shoes, then you really don't know how to mix and match things together. You don't know when less is more. This is an example of someone not knowing what they had. Wario is irrelevant to this piece. Luigi and his kick is irrelevant to this piece. The Firefox characters are irrelevant to this piece. The fact that you could have had Mario and Bowser in a prime position with a giant Kirby in the background is absolutely extraordinary. That would have been one of the strongest pieces of the entire night. I'm with Morgan entirely. The use of Kirby is exceptional. It is brilliant. And you have harmed that. And I know what was going on through Elijah's head. Elijah's looking at this thinking, yeah, but man, I'll say, well, I got to try to put in here, I got to try to put Luigi in here. I got to put Link in there. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just like the example I gave a few minutes ago. You don't have to wear red shoes. Just because you like the red shoes, you don't have to wear red shoes. You got yellow pants on. You got a damn plaid shirt on. You don't have to do anything. Less is more. Know when to say no. Know when what you've got is enough. And in this piece right here, the most interesting idea, and by the way, executed excellently, is the Mario and the Bowser and the Kirby. All executed perfectly. The Luigi is stiff. The Wario makes no damn sense. Perspective is horrible. The foreground illustration is horrible. The arm doesn't rest quite right. And then the Link and whatever the hell Link is fighting doesn't look great. It's so small that it's irrelevant. God forbid the character in the far background and they're in Kirby's mouth. This is a piece that would have been a rock star piece if Elijah learned less is more. And that's a shame because this piece had a lot going for it. The color work I thought was really good. I even like the line work. I know what Jen's getting at, but again, you know, you have to at some point be old, and I'm old, and I look at comics I grew up on. And this reminds me of an artist who was very popular at Marvel. He was never a superstar, but he was very popular. I love the style because he's kind of like a modern or 1980 style version of a 1930 style artist like Joe Shuster or Jack Kirby back in the 40s, or you know, just Joe Staton. Some of these guys who were really big back in the 40s, 50s, and so on. And this is you know, line work that's very obvious what it is. It's not, you know, this is not sophisticated line work. It's heavy. You know, the color work is kind of flat except for some shadowing and so forth, which he uses for definition. This reminds me of classic comics that I grew up with in the 1980s comics in Marvel. I have no problem with the execution of this piece. The Mario piece, the Bowser piece, the arm of Mario is actually not great. It's too large. It's too long. It doesn't fit his body entirely, but it works. The energy of the piece works. The Kirby is inspired. Everything else did not need to be there, but it was because the artist thought that, you know what, I'm going to juice the judges by giving them everything they could possibly, like everything can fit in this piece they can win. And that, folks, is when you know this is a painful lesson to learn. Don't try to outwit your artwork. Don't try to outwit the judges or the fans or the consumers or your editors because you're going to try to throw everything in the kitchen sink into your artwork. This piece did not need that. It was good in terms of just the core images that were there. All this extra stuff killed this image. Next up, Richard Milhouse. Anthony, what'd you think?
Okay, for me, this was a really good piece. I love the line art, the anatomy, the coloring, the shading, I legitimately cannot find a single flaw in this. This is way better than anything I could ever make.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first time a judge says this is better than what I can do. I'm going to judge this. This is better than me. Jen, what'd you think?
All right, I really love the matchup. Pikachu versus Blanca, brilliant. Okay, so I really dig the coloring in this piece, and also what Anthony was saying with the anatomy, like the muscles on Blanca look really, really cool. But then, speaking of Blanca, I wish they showed more of Blanca. I think it's a shame they sort of like cut off half of Blanca, but I really like the piece, and I really like what's happening there, like Blanca ripping through this big super move from Pikachu. So yeah, I really like this piece.
Morgan?
Yeah, no, again, I'm going to concur with the other judges that the coloring is really good here. The shading and the lighting especially is pretty phenomenal and stands out to me. Kind of going off of what Jin said, not so much about him getting cut off, but also just the perspective. I think it could have been even more dynamic because this is such a dynamic battle that's going on. And I admittedly, I don't know enough about Street Fighter to know if that was a good matchup, but it is very exciting. I know. I hate
matchup. This is very, very clever. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know games. I'm sorry. But no, I think overall as an art piece, this is really cool. I just think it could have maybe used a more dynamic perspective because there's a lot going on, especially with Pikachu. He's the most kind of dynamic when it comes to the posing, I think. But otherwise, really good piece. Love the coloring. Love the line work.
Yeah, so I guess I'm the asshole here. I didn't care for this piece as much. I thought it was super clever. I loved Pikachu. I love the idea that Pikachu was, which I don't know if this is normal. I don't know if any of you guys are Pokemon fans. I'm not. I don't know if this is normal that he can summon kind of an electrical beast around him, kind of a la Sasuke with that thing that he can form around him and stuff. But so I don't know if this is normal, but I thought it was clever. I thought it was really, really cool. I thought it was a great matchup against Blanca. But there's something about this seems stiff to me. I mean, Pikachu, I'll say this. Pikachu is executed, in my opinion, excellently. And Blanca, to me, just doesn't quite pop for me. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm looking at it on the wrong device, but the color seemed a tad more. No, okay, well, I'm looking at it now on the iPad. I went from my desktop to my iPad. Yeah, it pops a bit more on the iPad. The color pops a bit more. versus the desktop. Still think the electricity that block it generates, which is typically blue, could have given this piece a more dynamic execution of yellow versus blue. I think that would have been really exciting. But yeah, this is, I mean, the issues I have with the piece were more about just kind of the subtleties of it. But in terms of the piece itself, the construction, the execution, the weight, the line weight, the expressions, the concept, everything, the anatomy, fantastic, really, really strong piece. All right, so next up, sorry about that, folks. Next up, we move to what I'm sure is going to be considered the best image tonight, and that this matchup is Bailey Boutel from Australia versus Huzaifa. So Bailey Boutel here has Mac from Punch-Out, Super Punch-Out, Nintendo video game, and he's upper punching Ryu from Street Fighter. I will go first and just say I have nothing negative to say about this picture. This is one of the best picks we have ever had in the tournament of March Art Madness. And we had Bailey Boutel in March Art Madness last year, and he contributed a couple of pieces that are still talked about. Anthony?
Do you want me to dig for a critique?
No, I'd just rather you say you liked it or you didn't.
I do love it. The only thing I could say is that, like, Mac does look a bit. I would look to see him lean a little bit more into the punch, but for the most part, this is amazing. The shading is legendary.
Morgan.
Yeah, again, there's not much that can be said negatively about Boutel's work. I think the background, even though it's, kind of minimalist in color, has so much vibrancy and speaks to the action, the sort of the momentum of Mac's punch into Ryu. I think the one thing that stood out to me or that really helps this piece is the contrast. The shading in his body really shows him doubled over, shows how much the sort of the shapes that are there and the depth of what's happening, the action that's in this piece. And so, that for me, if that had been any lighter, that probably would have taken away from it, but it adds so much dynamism to this piece. I thought this was really good.
All right, Jen.
All right, so obviously it's incredible, fantastic. He's a superstar. I guess last week the whole so many DC Marvel characters, I just want more. So I wish there were more characters on here, but that's just a nitpick, and it's just because I want to see more Bailey Boutel.
That is clearly a nitpick. Yeah. One thing I will say, just to wrap up the discussion about Bailey, is that Bailey has worked in watercolor, or at least he's gone with this look in the past, and it works well for him. He knows how to pull it off. Obviously, last week he did not work in this sort of color tone, and it was still a stunning piece. I will say that I don't know. I have not played Street Fighter. I'm a huge Capcom fan. I'm a huge Street Fighter fan from back before people were Capcom Street Fighter fans. I remember playing the first Street Fighter game back in the mid 80s. I will say that in this particular piece, or late 80s, in this particular piece, I think he's replicating accurately the new color scheme for the Street Fighter 3E games, which the character designs there, they've moved on from Akimon and Bingus, and they've gone for sort of painted look for the characters with this kind of extra heavy line weight, this kind of stylized. So to me, this appears to capture that. But again, I'm not as familiar with it, so I can't say for sure. His opponent is Huzaifa. Morgan, what do you think?
Sorry, I had to get my mic turned on. So this is really cool. When you talk about the contrast between the two pieces, the last one only had 2 characters. This has many characters. I actually really like the composition of the characters. Preparing for this battle or engaging each other. You've got characters coming from above and characters below. I think an attempt for that kind of perspective with this many characters involved, I think, is really commendable. And that to me, I think, is the strongest point about the piece. The one thing I don't like is the coloring. It comes off very pastel-like, and it's not quite as dynamic as we've seen in other pieces. Even for traditional, there probably could have been some more work involved with that. But otherwise, the composition for me, I thought, was really cool.
Jen?
Okay, so the matchup for this one for Huzaifa, I feel like is a shame, because I actually love this piece. I love it a lot. I love that all the stuff that's going on in here. But Morgan brought up something I was going to say, which is the coloring. So I think you were talking about this last week, Fred, where the traditional coloring just wasn't working for the piece. And here, definitely. So in the background, you have like the mountains on the left-hand side seem they're like colored in fully, but then they're just lines towards, and it gets really messy. And so it's a really big shame. The other thing is that Ken's pose is exactly the same as Superman's pose in his last piece, like pretty much exactly the same. But I wish that Huzaifa should really try and do some digital coloring, because if he did this on computer, it would have looked incredible.
All right, Anthony.
Not much I can do but agree with the other judges. Like I do love the composition, even from the fanboy point of going through and finding out which characters are cosplayed as which, because you have Mario, Ryu, and Chun, Peach. Like it's all very fun, but like I have to agree with Jin. I wish this was digitally colored so the coloring could be more dynamic, because like especially to the competition, it seems like something's lost with it being traditional. It's a good piece. I just wish it was better. I love it. I just wish it was better.
Yeah, I concur with what Jen said earlier. I mean, I concur with all the judges, but I concur with what Jen said in this case. This is, and I've said this, I've been doing this competition now since I created it back 2016. This is why this is such a beautiful tournament, because you get artists who are really extraordinary, and sometimes this is life, folks. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw. Luck of the draw. Bailey Boutel is tough. I said at the start of the tournament that he was one of those kind of Final Four juggernauts. He was last year. He is this year. That being said, look, there's no question with all the creativity in this piece. I love the character work in this piece. I love the Mario. That damn Mario at the bottom, the kind of Mario meets, because I don't know if you guys realize this, but the characters are all switched. Mario is Ryu, and Mario is Ryu. So you see the mustache up there if you kind of look hard at the Mario throwing down the Hadouken, and then dressed as Mario with a far more athletic physique is Ryu. So he did a switcheroo here, which is really cool. And but that being said, though, it's the color. It's like, folks, I said this last week, and I didn't get any pushback from it, but I felt bad when I said it, even though it's the truth. I'm partial. I'm a publisher of this magazine. I'm partial. Show me you understand the use of color. There are great black and white artists. Our comics are produced in black and white, folks. But at some point, if you're going to be taken seriously as artists, you've got to show you have an understanding of color. And this, I've never been a fan of this sort of loose coloring style. I've never been a fan of Copic markers. I'm sure, this isn't Copic. I don't know if this is marker. I don't know what this is, but I've never been a fan of this. There is no question, zero question, that this piece would be hyper competitive to Bailey's piece had he gone with a digital coloring strategy. There is no question that this would have been a far superior piece had he gone with digital coloring. The fact that he went with this sort of Copic or marker-based coloring means that the colors are washed out. It makes the piece, therefore, the characters who are smaller and more prodigious amount of characters in this piece, they look a bit more. They look samey. They don't look particularly dynamic or inviting or interesting. That your eye kind of lets them all bleed into one another, particularly with that background being almost the exact same color as the bison. But that being said, though, that bison with his back turned and the kind of wicked anime style smile, that's great. Whether or not that's the Superman from last year for Ken, that looks great. Whether or not the Ryu in the foreground could have been, the camera could have brought on him a little bit more to make it more dynamic, that's still great. The Link is great. The Ryu and Ken as Mario is great. The Donkey Kong is great. There's some great character work here. This Huzaifa has got a badass opportunity as a future artist, but this is an example of, the matchups are never fair. This is life. In this case, he got matched up with Bailey Boutel, but you know what? You still got to compete. You still got to show up. You still got to take them on. And this idea was a hell of a lot more creative than what Bailey Boutel had. So he had that going for him. He executed the idea of the characters better than I think what Bailey did. Bailey just presented us Mac versus Ryu. Here he did some really creative idea of character swaps. To do all of that and then give it a very lackluster coloring job, thinking that, well, this will suffice, is boneheaded. It's absolutely boneheaded. This is, you are fighting for this. Imagine, instead of an iPad, imagine you are fighting for a job. Marvel's looking for the last artist they're going to hire to do Spider-Man. It's between you and another artist. The other artists you've seen, they're really, really talented. They've got great, they can draw, you know, Spider-Man in webcomic form and so forth. I mean, in web crawler form. They've got Todd McFarlane's sort of arachnid look, and you maybe don't have that. Well, then you've got to find what works for you. And then you've got to execute it flawlessly. And this is a scenario where a lot of the execution is fantastic. It was competitive. And it's been let down by the color. I compare this to, and I know you all have seen this, when you see an artist who's mega talented, and they're like, hey, check out my comic book. And you read the comic, you're like, oh man, these panels look great. The layout's great. The character design is great. The action scenes look great. And then when you get ready to read what the character is saying, it's hand-drawn, crabbily constructed speech bubbles. They're uneven. The words don't make sense because they're cut up, because he's trying to squeeze it all into the word bubble, because he chose to hand draw the word bubble instead of going for a computer software substitute. That's shitty execution. And this is not shitty execution, but this is lackluster. This is absolutely lackluster on the color base. Huzaifa could have competed with Bailey. And he's still going to compete. He's got fan votes out there, but I tell you, I looked at this and I felt bad for Huzaifa until I didn't. Because Huzaifa had every chance to knock off Billy Battel. Billy Battel didn't win last year's competition. He can be beaten, and this could have been the one to beat him. But I think there's some moments here where he could have gone deeper, and he didn't. All right, next up, we have Olivia Lynn versus Kartik Sainsate. Olivia Lynn versus Kartik Sainsate. This piece from Olivia Lynn is also Mac versus Ryu. I don't think she knows Bailey, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, Anthony?
For the most part, I do like the color choice. Like, in terms of scenery, like part of the background does have me off a bit. Like I'm trying to read a horizon line, and I don't know if those are bushes or trees in the back. I think they're bushes. I want to go with bushes, but I think the scenery is like a Smash stage, so because I can see the floating islands in the background.
That's a good catch. I didn't even notice that. Okay. So any other thoughts? That's it?
Like, other than like, I do love the color choice, and I am a fan of the line art. Like the line, like the varying line whips. I love that.
Okay. All right, Jen?
Okay, so obviously like the similar concept with Bailey, but I really like the concept of them charging up their super moves. I think that was really, really cool. And it looks like Olivia has taken in some of our feedback from last week and actually did a background, so really kudos to that. I think that the biggest problem here is that I know what she's trying to do, but like Ryu's hands here aren't in the position of charging up a Hadouken. And then Mac is supposed to be charging up a punch, but it just looks like he's holding his arm back, just holding up casually. And so that's where it really lets this piece down. Like, I know what they're trying to do, but it doesn't look like what they're trying to do.
Okay. Morgan.
Yeah, again, kind of similar comments. I think the perspective or the anatomy that's going on with Mac is kind of wonky. Like his left arm seems so thin. Yeah, I know it's supposed to be further away from us, but it just kind of it just looks weird because you can kind of see the inside of the elbow, and that sort of defines what it looks like, further up compared to his right arm, which is so much more muscular and seems better in perspective. I appreciate too the effects that are going on with them charging up. I don't know enough about the series to sort of comment on that, but I think art-wise, I thought that those were kind of cool with the glow effects. The background for me, and I wouldn't have noticed that this might have been related to Smash Brothers. For me, it just seems way too peaceful as in terms of context of what's going on. It's not so much about the detail that's in it, although you've got the characters that have line work and the background is just completely painterly, it just didn't seem like the right choice for scenery or for a location where these characters would be fighting. So overall, it kind of throws it off for me. Yeah.
All right. I don't know what I make of this piece. I agree with Jen that I think Olivia took some feedback from last week. I agree with, or at least I'm on board with a little bit of what Anthony was saying about not knowing exactly if this is meant to be trees or bushes. My inclination was this was meant to be kind of like there. For some reason, I feel like this is elevated landscape they're on, and they're fighting, and those are trees and like hills behind them and so forth, and then. That's the impression I get, but the execution is, let's be frank, this is just a floor that she painted to make it look like they're standing on something, because none of it makes sense. Ryu's got his leg up a little bit, like he's standing, like he's got one leg standing on an elevated rock or platform, but the image itself is flat. There's no definition or dimension giving to the environment that they're in. It's just a flat 2D image, like a lot of coming from the video game industry, we would call these bitmaps. So there's not a great deal of sophistication in terms of how this is laid out. She attempted a background, that's great, but at the end of the day, there's not really a sense here that this is a connected scene of two characters. That being said, yeah, I did not make the fact they were charging their super moves. I didn't realize that, but I certainly get that. I didn't recognize those were floating hours. I don't play Nintendo games or Smash Brothers, so I didn't know that either. But this is stiff. But the color work here is good. The intensity of the color for their respective super moves is really quite admirable. And by and large, the character. I like complete artwork like this. I like artwork even if it's stiff, and this is certainly stiff. I like artwork that just feels in and of itself complete, and this does. So I have interest in this. I have some positive feelings about this piece, even though it has a lot of negatives to it. The background again being a flat background with no connection to the artwork of the two characters whatsoever. Okay, so her opponent is Kartik Sainsate, and let's start with you, Jen. What did you make of Kartik Sainsate's piece?
I love how dynamic this picture is. I know that the anatomy is wonky, but I think that kind of works with the intensity of this motion. So there's one big thing, one elephant in the room that's distracting me, and that's the background. And it's like at a ridiculously low resolution that it's taking everything away from the picture for me. It's really, really, really distracting. But like the electricity and this Ryu's hand is a bit squished, but the arm looks really good, and the electricity and Link's face and just the energy. But man, that background, oof.
Okay, Morgan.
Yeah, going to that too. That was kind of the first thing that I noticed as well. That it's pixelated. I totally appreciate what they're doing with the speed lines. That's cool. I also think maybe they could have avoided doing color. It could have been black and white because the orange. Yeah. Yes. I guess it ties in a little bit with Ryu's.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry, but I'm so glad you said that. But go ahead. This could have been black and white. You are so right.
Yeah, no, and again, it would have helped those characters really pop out because they are dynamic. I love how muscular Link looks. He's got this epic expression on his face. It's great. The coloring, it's great as well. I definitely love the lighting effect from both of these characters. So, I mean, it's really dynamic. It's just that background is the most glaring thing.
Anthony?
I'd say if there was a bit deeper shading on some of the coloring, then color would have worked. While I myself do like the coloring, I did not like. I at first did not notice how pixely the background was because I initially saw this on my phone, but now like it's really glaring out. One thing I did like think of was I couldn't tell was that if there was too much electricity or like if there shouldn't be that much of it there. Like, does it work? But for the most part, I love the perspective. I just wish the background wasn't so out of place now.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is superior perspective work. This is really really good perspective work. I mean, if you are watching this or hearing us talk about this, folks, this is what if you're a professional artist, this is what you got to do. You got to know perspectives. You got to know how to create depth perception. And as we just talked about in the previous piece of Olivia Lynn, where she's got this background that has no depth perception whatsoever, it just looks like a flat image that these two characters are kind of just placed on, even though there's no sense of what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. Same thing with Jacqueline Renee with her piece where Scooby-Doo characters are running. There was no depth perception there. Being able to have perspective, being able to create effective perspective so that you can have dynamic images. This is a Marvel comic standard, folks. If you want to make Marvel comics or manga, you got to know how to do dynamic perspective. And this is a dynamic perspective. I totally agree. First of all, let me get this out of the way. The background doesn't bother me. It's pixelated. You can say it's artistic. It doesn't bother me. It's a shock background that has no relationship to what's happening, in my opinion. Therefore, it doesn't detract from it. It doesn't add to it. It's just kind of like it's such an appalling sort of intensity going on behind you that it makes your eyes. And by the way, this is an effective use of it because the lines draw your eyes into Link, which is in the foreground, therefore bringing you into a sense of intensity with the balance of Ryu in the foreground. I mean, he's in the background and Ryu in the foreground. It literally does its job of sending your eyes right where it's supposed to go. So I hear that's an artist thing, folks. That's not. I don't think the average person would care that this background's pixelated. I didn't care the background's pixelated. What I thought was that this piece had been really strong in black and white. What I thought was that it was kind of gaudy because there's so much stuff going on with it, and you have to wonder because the line work here is really strong. I mean, he's got really simple lines. If you had just left this in black and white, and because the line works are clearly just light that he's generated, just placed on top of the image here. So he could have just done this, these coloring it with lines that he's energy beams that he's coloring with lines with the color. I mean, he could have just left this in black and white. They still would have popped as these weird kind of little light bars and so forth, but the blacks would have been more profound. He probably could have even done some shading with it in black and white. This piece would have looked really good in black and white. And that was the first thought that I had in looking at it. I don't even think the pixelated background would have bothered the artist as much because it didn't bother me. So I like this piece a great deal. It has some problems, of course, but the sheer fact that Kartik attempted perspective and delivered on it is, to me, a real win. I will let us also get one because the other guys, the artists here, they're artists, folks, so they're really nice. They try to be nice to each other, but I'm not. I keep it real. This is far less than his ability with that image he did last week. The image he did last week was masterful. The Deadpool and Joker versus the superheroes on TV and so forth. That was a literal masterstroke of creativity. This one is far less than that. Far less talent, far less dynamic composition going on, far less creativity. This piece is a hell of a lot less intriguing than his first piece the first week out. But still, this was a really good piece. All right, next, moving on. The final matchup we have for this team and then we'll take a break is Jeff Duvall versus Jalen Tate Lucas. Jeff Duvall, also a veteran of March Art Madness competitions in the past. Very talented artist, creator of a comic called Inlock. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a piece here with a lot of Nintendo and Street Fighter characters. So let's start up with Morgan.
So the first thing, that I kind of noticed was the number of characters that were involved. Again, it's a fun composition. There's a lot of action going on between the characters of Capcom and Nintendo. The two things that stood out to me that weren't so great is, I love Frey's ability to do heavy line work. That's very much a part of his style. But from the background to the foreground, it all seems like it's relatively the same line weight. It would have liked to see some difference where the foreground was, deeper line weight and the background was a little bit lighter to kind of help separate, background, middle ground, foreground. And then the other thing that stood out to me was, again, Vega taking up a majority of the picture. I can kind of understand that he's trying to do, he's kind of in perspective, but I don't know if it was good to have him taking up so much because he's covering up a lot of what's going on between like these other characters.
Okay. All right. Anthony, what did you think?
I love how busy it is. and the color choice wouldn't have gone that shiny on Vega's back though. But I agree with Morgan. Like Vega's taking up too much space, and it doesn't look like Link's taking up like enough, especially compared to Vega. Like Vega's claw is blocking a lot of the action that I personally would really like to see. I would love to see like Lil Mac versus DJ. Like, but
Balrog, dude, Balrog. Come on, is that DJ?
that
No, I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
Balrog.
No, that is Balrog. Even I knew that.
Yeah.
is it? Like I couldn't tell from the hair. Like it must. They have similar hairstyles.
I get your confusion, but yeah, I think it's Balrog. But anyway, keep going.
Like there's. I agree with her. I would love to see more variation within the line width, but for the most part, I like it.
Jen?
Okay, so I actually don't mind Vega taking up so much space. What he's done here is really interesting. So if you follow Vega's arm and then to the claws, it leads to Link's face, and then Link's sword leads to the Mac and Balrog fight, and then Balrog's punch leads to the Mario Ryu fight, which then leads to Chun-Li and Samus. So there's this like really nice sense of continuity here. Though the background line work, I wish it was thinner or a different color, because these scratchy lines that are representing, I think, the grass is just making the image a bit messy. But I really like that continuity in where your eye travels in the artwork.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way as Jen. In fact, I'm probably on board with Jen entirely on this. First of all, let me say that, I mean, so there are problems with the image, but those problems have more to do with Jeff's style and how Jeff depicts things, which therefore then you either are a fan of his style or you're not. But there's no question that Jeff's artwork here is going to appeal to some people, and some people it may not appeal to them. But I couldn't agree more. I think this is really, really deftly laid out. I won't say it's masterfully laid out, but it's deftly laid out. The idea of where your eye is being sent, as I talked about in the previous piece with Karthik Sainsate, I think here this is the same thing. Vega in the foreground immediately with his claws out, and because of the visceral nature of Vega, this is also, folks, what good character design does. Had Vega not been as interesting of a character look, you wouldn't have been following his eye. Your eyes wouldn't have followed him nearly as much. You would have gone to the first thing that was actually interesting to look at. But Vega's an interesting character. Link is a super popular character. Mac is actually probably the one who's hidden the most here, both in terms of how he's laid out, as well as the fact that the blades kind of cover him up, but also the fact that Mac, by and large, as a character, is not well known. Balrog, of course, looks very, very good. In fact, I love the ab work on Balrog. I know it's silly, but that, Jeff's, again, has a style, and I thought the Balrog was a little different from his normal style. I like it a lot. The Ryu and Mario fight, I think, is interesting, although Mario looks very flat. And I think, to me, that's probably where if you have to quibble about this, is that there's some stuff that just looks stiff and kind of flat. The Mario looks flat. The same as Kick looks great, but Chun-Li looks kind of flat to me a little bit. Link, doesn't look quite as intense as I think he should look in that case. The Balrog, in fact, if I had to say the best image on here is Balrog, I think the Balrog image, the detail, the design, I think that's just a really, really damn good looking Balrog, and he really sells everything that he's doing. So, the background's not as intriguing, but although it doesn't have to be, but I wish he had gone a different color palette with the background, because again, I think here, Jeff's colors are muted in general. This is a scenario where you've got the land that the characters are on is kind of muted and it's kind of boring, kind of pukish greenish sort of color, and then the backdrop is kind of stale purple sort of color. They kind of blend in with each other a little bit. They're both kind of stale. And had he gone with like a more sharp background, like a black or something like that, and then like a sharp green for the grass or even brown for the grass, I think it would have really, really worked well, in my opinion. But, it's still an interesting piece, and it's got a technically very proficient piece from Jeff. Now, Jeff's competitor, and the last image of this team before we take a break, folks, is Jalen Tate Lucas. And I'm going to give honors of first dibs at this to Anthony Jackson.
So, first off, I love the super move that he's doing. Like he's making Link Akuma, and he's doing his Raging Demon Shungoku. That's already fun for me, and And I like how he's got the other Street Fighter characters cosplaying. You got Chun-Li, Samus, like Ryu, Mario, and Balrog, Little Mac. Like in terms of coloring, like I really like how sorry, caught a lump. I really like the haze around the Triforce symbol on his back. How it's mimicking the KO Flash, and it's making it like the dull gray around it kind of makes it similar to how scary the move is supposed to be. So for the most part, yes, I love this piece. I love it.
All right, Jen, what did you think?
So I think one thing that this competition has done to me is made me a big Jalen Tate Lucas fan. I love his artwork. I love how all his characters are depicted. I like how that like their faces are just like abstract shapes. It's so great. I think that his piece last week without the line work looked better. I wish that he went without line work again, but still, I really like it. I really like it. I'm a big Jalen Tate Lucas fan now. You're awesome.
All right, folks. Jen went from judge to fanboy. Morgan, rescue us. What did you think?
Well, just this is more of an aside, but you know, after our trip to Cleveland, I kind of appreciate the multiple battle of the links kind of take on this. But
yes.
Yeah, it was a funny moment. So yeah, no, again, Lucas, his style is very interesting, very dynamic. I actually appreciate the line work in this one. It's a little bit different than what he did last time, and I think it does work for this piece. Again, it's kind of his style is more in the shapes, really, and the sort of the dynamism of these characters. Even the characters that are in the center, they're very dynamic. The posturing, the facial expressions. I think the composition overall is really good, and something that Lucas I think does very well, because I have this blown up on one side of my screen, and then I also have it in the YouTube window, so it's a little bit smaller. But even from a distance, the lighting and the coloring is just, it's so good. The lighting in the center of the piece and how it fades to a darker shade, and especially with the background, I think that this overall is really well done.
I totally agree. I must say that so last year we had a very, very competitive tournament last year. In fact, our Final Four was some of the best artists you'll ever see. Megumi Tala from the Philippines, William Puker from Sweden, who eventually won the whole competition, Michelle Massarola from Japan, and a young man who the first image he did the first week was this Batman piece, and it was neat. It was a different perspective. It wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. It was kind of stiff and rough, but it was like there was a guy in the foreground. It was raining, and he had his gun out, and the rain was hitting him, and so forth. And Batman was crashing through a window to jump down at him. The second week, the artist really, really blew people away, because he then went in there and delivered some really interesting stuff with I think it was Hunter was what he ended up doing as his second image. And so that artist, folks, was of course Bailey Boutel. And my reason in telling that story is that one of the things that you see in that is you see the fact that what we saw last year that really stood out to me was how artists can grow, how artists can go in this tournament, how they can kind of try an idea, get themselves out there because they're trying to get their feet get their feet together, and then the next time they kind of go out and they really offer some new ideas. That was again Bailey Boutel. That's what Bailey did. Was he took each round. He just really explored more opportunities and went bigger and better, and got more and more advanced. I mean, I think his third week he did this really, really amazing piece. This is all from last year. Jalen Tate Lucas strikes me just like that. Jalen comes into the mix this first week with a really interesting idea, really interesting take. But then the second week, though, he just knocks it out of the park. I think this is a phenomenal piece. I think it's angular. I think it's colorful. I think the line work is fantastic. I disagree with Jay on the line. I think the line work is excellent. I even love the fact that, because I didn't realize what this was meant to be. I didn't realize it was meant to be Akuma. But if you look at one of the versions of Link in the foreground, you can actually see through him. So it's an after image. It's not even a real image, colored perfectly, but it's still an after image. So you can see you can see Balrog's body and Mario's body in between there. The fact that yes, there's a deftness of the design here, where he really is merging the Street Fighter and the Mario worlds together, Nintendo worlds together. That's excellent. That is so excellent. So I think Jalen Tate Lucas is a threat. I think he's a big time threat to a lot of artists' competition. I think he's super creative. I think he's really, really talented. And I think this piece is frankly exceptional. This is perspective, it's line work, it's got excellent color, it's excellent craft, it's a great concept. All the sort of skill sets that you want to look at in these sort of things, I think Jalen Tate Lucas delivered in this one image. And that's to be your second week in a tournament like this, and you've never done it before. That's pretty kick-ass stuff. So that's it, folks. That's it for round 2 for Team B. Now we've got 2 more teams left to go, but we're going to take this moment to take a 5 to 10 minute break. So what we're going to do is I'm going to leave you guys here with some really, really beautiful Saturday AM imagery, and you're going to just basically, you're going to love it. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to look at it and go, man, this is some really good Saturday AM imagery. And everyone else is going to take a break. They're going to take a pee break. They're going to get some fluids in their system. They're going to stretch their legs and so forth. And then we're going to come back and wrap this bad boy up. Folks, if you've never been to our website, play around with it. If you're on the site right now, you've never been before, play around with it. It's www.saturday-am.com. We're going to be adding more exclusive content to the website, but we feature in our digital manga anthology, we feature right now currently 16 original and exclusive comics only that you can find in Saturday AM, including Apple Black, Clock Striker, Comet Man, Soul Beat, Mutton Chop, Better Off Ignorant, soon to be Zero, King of Thieves, Paradise Down, Bully Eater, and so many more. If you love talented independent creators, take this opportunity, spend a little time on our website. If you don't do it right now, you want to use a bathroom break and so forth, go ahead and do that. Come back to the website after we finish this tournament tonight and explore a little bit. Support independent creators. Support the most diverse shonen manga anthology in the world. Folks, this is Frederick Jones, founder and publisher of Saturday AM. We are halfway through round 2 reviews and critical analysis of the entries for the artists in the world's most just ultimate fan art tournament, March Art Madness 2018. We will be wrapping up with the second round here within the next few minutes, but please, we're going to take a quick break, calibrate ourselves. We'll come back and wrap this whole thing up, and we will wish you guys a good rest break. Folks, we'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. Hold tight. All right, folks, this is Frederick Jones, founder and publisher of Saturday AM, and we are back, and we are going to do the second half of this March Art Madness 2018 Round 2 tournament. So, hope you guys were able to enjoy a nice little break, give yourself a time to stretch your legs, walk outside, get some fresh air, get something to drink, and then come back down here and look at some more really good critical analysis of these amazing entries from artists all over the world. Now, if you're just joining us, this is March Art Madness. This is a international tournament created by the fine folks here at Saturday AM, the world's most diverse shonen manga anthology. And this tournament really puts the screws to people who want to be professional artists or people who are semi-professional artists and want to go even bigger, because this really challenges you to unlock all the skill sets necessary to have a successful career in art. That means everything from creative decision making to character design to perspective, staging, line work, pardon me, color, you name it. This is a really, really, really fun competition. Not so fun for the people doing it, but really fun for those of us who get to look at these amazing pieces of artwork. You get to play a role as well, folks. You get to vote for your favorite artist or for the artist that you thought was good, and that vote does play a role in how we determine who moves forward. So if you cast a vote, you can find it right here where it says vote for Team B, for example. If you want to show love to an artist that we mentioned tonight, either positively or negatively, you can do that. You can help affect whether or not that artist gets to move to the next round. Simply select, vote for Team B, Team A, Team C. You have to do it for all the groups. But, select that you want to vote for it, and then it'll take you to another screen where you can choose the winner of each matchup. Because unlike most art competitions, this is not a free-for-all, folks. This is artist against artist, mano a mano, testing their ability to do great anatomy, great perspective, great line work, great color, great concepts, great conceptual design, great character design against each other. So each team consists of a number of artists, and we match them up against each other, and we're giving them a theme, and they have to come up with an idea for that theme, and that's what they ultimately create. So, folks, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you a little bit about who sponsors this amazing competition. We have 3 fantastic sponsors, and our first that we're going to talk about is Comic Draw. As you can see here with this ad, Comic Draw, folks, is an application you can use on your iPad. It's only iPad, and that's okay, because you don't have to have a Wacom. You don't have to have an XP pen. All you need is an iPad, because you know what? You can do a lot of stuff on an iPad, folks. You can check out music. You can listen to podcasts. You can create your own music and podcasts. You can watch videos, Hulu, Netflix, iTunes, movies, you name it. And more importantly, you can play games, and you can create comics. The Comic Draw app, folks, allows you to import your own script. And with that script, you can create speech bubbles, special effects, professional grade. You can draw, you can ink, you can letter, you can color, you can package the whole thing up and then distribute it even all in one app. Now, an app that does all of this, if you were to buy some of the big names that some of the artists use, Manga Studio, Clip Studio, which are all great products, folks, but you're not going to be paying the amount you pay for this. Not only do you get a 2-week free trial, but when you ultimately pay for the app, it's just $9.99. And they constantly are adding new things to the app. If you look at the ad right here, folks, it not only tells you everything I just said, but it's got a great line here saying, I would have loved this software when I was just starting out. And that is from the one and only White Manga, creator of Apple Black, Saturday AM's most popular series, one of the most popular independent manga titles in the world. Folks, if it's good enough for White Manga, it's good enough for you. Check out Comic Draw. If you're on the website, right underneath Team B, you'll see a beautiful ad for it. Click it. Go to the website. You haven't got to buy anything. Just check it out. Get more information about Comic Draw and make your own comics professional. You can do it via Comic Draw, one of the sponsors of Saturday AM's Martial Art Madness 2018 competition. Now, next up is Team S. This is round 2, folks. Team S. We're going to be looking at some amazing artwork, and the theme for this group is Disney. Disney movies. Take any Disney or Pixar film character and depict them as anime versions. So this is kind of similar to what we did with Team C this week, where they had Hanna-Barbera. This is Disney. And then the bonus here, you can receive 20 extra points if you actually depicted them instead of anime as live action versions of classic Disney or Pixar animated movies. So 20 extra points, folks. That's not an easy lift. You can get up to 20 extra points if you attempted to do the Disney characters as live action versions. And remember, we've seen this because this is what all the movies that are out now are. Disney's making a killing by taking Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and making them live action. So let's get into it, shall we? We're going to start off this first matchup. And the first creator here is Nicholas Gray. Nicholas Gray had a really interesting piece last week that I think you noticed a little bit about that. You were talking about that last week, Jen. So why don't we give you the honors of starting us off?
Okay, well, I really dig this piece. I think it's really awesome. It's a really clever human design for Simba. And there's a lot of like, he's a prince. He's got his like crest. And also, does it look like Donald Glover to you? I think
it does. Yes. And I was getting ready to say he's doing something very specific here, but go ahead.
Yeah. So he knows that Donald Glover is playing Simba in the live action movie and decided, well, if they actually used humans, it looks cool. And I love that like he is in the middle splitting up the Pride Rock and the tree there. It's very good. It's a very good piece. I love it a lot.
Morgan?
Yeah, no, absolutely phenomenal. The coloring is great. The composition. I'm glad Jin mentioned the background because I noticed that too with the Pride Rock and the trees. They have the same shape, so it really rounds out this piece. And again, I also love what's going on at the bottom. You've got, because that's part of the story. It really speaks to the beginning part of the story and then the end of the story. In this whole idea. I mean, color-wise, I think that this was really strong. It's a phenomenal piece. This looks like it could be a promotional poster for an anime adaptation of The Lion King.
Anthony?
Morgan took what I was about to say about the anime poster thing, but this is a really good piece. Love the line weight. Love the shading, coloring. It's all good.
Yeah, this is kind of like Bailey Boutel. I mean, in fact, I think we're looking at we're looking at some real competitors here between Nicholas and Bailey Boutel and I forget who we talked about a few minutes ago, but Jalen Tate Lucas. We're looking at some real heavy hitters here. This Nicholas Gray is he's a juggernaut. In fact, look, this reminds me as well of Bailey Boutel last year because his first piece was just like Jalen Tate Lucas' first piece. It was okay. It was decent, but where they went the second week is something else. And this is light years better than the Spider-Man piece, in my opinion. Far, far better than the Spider-Man piece. And this is handsome stuff. In fact, this looks better than Donald Glover looks. I'm willing to bet a lot of women would say. I mean, this is cool. This is a great piece, and hats off to Nicholas Gray. I'm seriously impressed. Okay, his competitor is no slouch, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the more difficult matchups that we will have tonight. Nicholas Gray versus Rosalind Lamar. And folks, this is Rosalind Lamar's piece. Let's start you off with you, Anthony. What do you make?
This choice was hard for me because this is a sexy Jafar. I just love... I love the lighting. I love the texturing, the overall design. You even have texture in the smoke. I don't even know how to do that with colored pencil. This is amazing. I'll leave it at that.
Morgan?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this was one of the toughest, if not the toughest, matchup that I saw. And I almost wish that this was a matchup that happened in a later round because these are two phenomenal artists. I think... Again, doing a live action version of Jafar, this is phenomenal. I think the only criticism is maybe a little bit of the perspective or the proportion of like what's going on with the hand in the foreground, but otherwise, like overall, this is a great piece, a wonderful matchup, really.
This is a tough matchup, yeah. Jen?
Yeah, this matchup is ridiculous. Like, look at the details in the outfit there with the gold accents, and oh my goodness, and like even the crease in the arm, like the the clothes on his arms. Oh my god, it is very good. And this is a really great example of traditional art done well. Like if you know what you're doing, it looks incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I've said this a couple of times tonight. Let me say it again, folks. This is light years beyond what Rosalind did in the first in the first round. The first round of their work. I thought the image that Rosalind did with the Gears of the God of War image last week was interesting. It was kind of stiff. It was stiff in a lot of ways. A lot of stiffness to it. The color work there was okay, but it was with a different approach. This is, as we indicated, the smoke is masterful. The design of the tunic and the various things going on with the design of the outfit, masterful. The staff and the detail in the staff, masterful. The feathers in the bird, masterful. His expression, Jafar's expression. Jafar looks. I mean, I don't know what actor's playing this. I mean, just like Donald Glover is playing Simba in Lion King. Now that, by the way, he'll be portraying him as a CGI lion, not as a human being. But still, you know, the same way that they've hired Donald Glover to portray Simba, I don't know who they've hired to play Jafar, but for all I know, this looks just like the actor. This looks like a real person. Words fail me, folks. Words fail me. This is what makes March Art Madness the fucking bomb. And I don't mind cursing. I know kids will watch this, but folks, some things are just the fucking bomb, and this is the fucking bomb. These are two talented people that, if you saw their work last week, you would have said, like, oh, I like that piece. It's an interesting piece. You would never have made the leap to these two exceptional pieces, and to think that these are two exceptional pieces going up against each other, which is something that you imagine will happen later in the tournament, is happening right here in the second week. Flawless work from both these folks. I don't even. Something tells me this will be decided by the thinnest of margins, if that. Okay. Next up, the matchup will consist of Jiro Dejima versus Burak Sahin. Another matchup I think is going to be. This is going to be a tough one because there's some good stuff done in both these. Now, I don't think either one of these are flawless, but there's good stuff done in both these pieces. This is obviously Pinocchio, and let's start off with Jin.
Okay, so I think this is a really good, realistic, in quotes, take on the Pinocchio character. Pinocchio, like live action Pinocchio, is scary as hell. But yeah, I don't know how to judge this one very well. I think the colors are a weird choice with this realistic. They've got these very, like, his skin is very, very pink. It's good. It's just Pinocchio is very scary.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jen has given us several things to think about tonight, and he's telling us now that he can't judge this because it scares him. Morgan, what do you make of this? Are you scared?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it was kind of interesting because, like, I guess the eyes are the one thing that sort of define whether or not this was more like anime-ish or realistic. Like, it
Right.
definitely comes off more realistic.
Yes.
Because even with the detail, like, you know, the folds that are in Geppetto's sleeve, like, you know, that's like, I would see that in an anime or a manga, but those eyes make it seem more realistic. I think
Right.
for me, from a distance, the lighting and the shading of this seems to work a lot better. Looking at it up close, I don't think, you know, the blending is quite as good. And yet, yeah, this was kind of a hard one. I think, you know, the way that the hair was shaded, or some of the line work could have been maybe a little bit more polished or refined. But I mean, overall, this is an interesting piece.
Anthony?
For me, I'm a sucker for this kind of line art and craftsmanship, pun intended. Like, I do agree some of the colors, like, some of the colors could be better, like, because Geppetto is very, very pink. But I just love all the detail, like all the wrinkles you get. Like, it's so great. I just love this.
Yeah, I am not scared of Pinocchio, but I share Jen's thought that this is a difficult piece to review. I think Morgan and Anthony hinted as well at this, but I share the thought in that this is a really difficult piece to review because the color work here is good. But let me say this: compared to what we just looked at, this is a really strong piece of artwork. There's no question, a strong piece of artwork. This artist is super talented. This artist can create, at least you would imagine they could create a comic book cover with aplomb. This has great draftsmanship to it. This has, the color work is solid. It's not like, stand out, but it's solid. The line work and the wrinkles and the detail he gives into the characters feel again. You could argue there's kind of overused a little bit, and I would argue probably they are, but it still works. It provides a lot of personality to Geppetto. Pinocchio doesn't look scary to me, but he does have a quality that makes him look both real and unreal. And so this is a fascinating piece. I find myself looking at this piece so much, which we talked about this a little bit last week, about pieces of artwork that reward you for looking at it over and over again. I don't know if this rewards you as much, but it does cause you to look at it quite a bit. So with the last two pieces, I kept using the word masterful. This isn't masterful, but this is damn good. And I think this is a really strong piece of art. Again, this is a tough matchup, folks, because they're up against Barak Sahin, and this is a piece of art. What makes this matchup difficult, folks, and I'll just go first, is that this is the exact opposite of the piece we just saw. This is the exact opposite of the piece we just saw. This is the color is a bit more confidently arranged. It's not dynamic either, but it's got a hue to it that gives this piece life. I don't know if the other piece the color gave it life. This is the characters here are depicted in a way that is not quite realistic, but it's got that kind of tone to it that makes it feel like kind of a classic interpretation of Sleeping Beauty. The line work here is hidden by the color, so everything looks pretty spot on. There's no scratchiness to it, which the last piece kind of scratchy. There's a stiffness to it. And all the line work in the previous image, in my opinion, all that line work gave it a bit of life, even though the color wasn't as not strong as I think it could be. In this case, the color work is exceptional, but I still think it's very stiff. I think the artist just doesn't have quite the same energy with it. Particularly Sleeping Beauty herself, she just doesn't quite look right in that pose next to the guy. But that being said, for one thing, like where her legs go, like her legs are nowhere in the second half of the piece, or the right side of Prince Charming. But I still just think this is a really good piece. I think it's a very, very effective piece, and it's a different style. It's a different take on everything we've seen tonight. We've seen a lot of anime or a lot of various approaches. This is not per se realistic looking, but it's pretty strong. I like this piece a great deal as well. Jen?
I think this is a really nice reinterpretation of that very famous scene. And in a strange way, it's kind of like what you remember the scene looking like in your head. Like as a child, you're like, it looks like this. And then if you watch it, it doesn't actually look like this. So, and I like her hair. I like his hair. Whatever here. I think for me, like, it is very good. I wish they went a little bit more with the design, so it wasn't an exact copy of the classic Disney outfits. I think that would have been really nice, but that's nitpicky, and it's not really detracting from the image at all.
Right. Morgan?
I think the coloring for this was pretty phenomenal. The detail of the hair is really cool. There could be some more definition, and not necessarily doing the hard line work like we saw in the last piece, but whether it's in the streaks of light that are on the wall, or also where her legs are supposed to be, it kind of fades away almost, and it obviously doesn't look like her legs are there, but it does come off a bit flat. And I understand what they're doing with that curtain in front, but I think where it sits in relation to her head, it just almost seems like it's actually in the same plane. Like, I don't know if they could have done more to try to show again, that kind of foreground, middle ground, background. But otherwise, again, a very strong piece, and the coloring is very strong in this one.
Okay, Anthony.
For the sake of getting the extra points, I wish they went for making it anime-esque, but this picture and coloring knows exactly what it's doing. Like I just love I love the shading. Like, I wish the design was different, but this is exactly how I picture Disney. It knows they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I made my thoughts on it. This is, in fact, when Jim was talking, it reminded me when he was saying that, you know, that something about the color. I was thinking to myself, that it didn't look exactly like the scene, but it looked close enough that it makes you think that you're looking at the scene that's depicted. This reminds me of Alex Ross. I don't know if you guys know Alex Ross. He's a famous comic book illustrator. He paints a lot of famous Marvel and DC characters, and he makes certain scenes. Particularly, to me, his best work is when he's interpreting old classic Marvel or DC scenes or poses, but done in a hyper realistic way. This reminds me a little bit of that, particularly the way he handles some of his painted colors. So, all right, so that is one of our other matchups. Now, our next matchup is Eduardo Alcantara versus Chiara Reddy. And so Eduardo Alcantara here has a lot of Disney characters here. I'll start off with Morgan.
Right. So I think this was pretty fun, considering that there are a lot of characters. Some of them I don't necessarily recognize, so I'm guessing that they're from newer Disney movies that I maybe haven't seen. I think where this sort of falls apart is it's a bit hard to tell what's going on. The perspective isn't quite as strong. It's just there's a lot going on in the foreground, a lot going on in the back, and I think it's a little hard to read. And it doesn't help that the line work is a bit rough here, but there's a lot of credit to be given for trying to do these Disney characters and trying to show a kind of interesting scene with them. Yeah.
All right, Jen.
I wish this picture was in color, but the one thing that I do really like about it is that it's one of those pictures that like you pick up on something new every time you look at it. Like I just realized that Cinderella's thing is a Mickey Mouse hat, the thing that she's holding. And so like every time I'm like, oh wait, that character's from this, or that is from this, and that's a reference to this. So in that sense, it's kind of like a Where's Wally? So I keep looking at this picture and I keep finding new things that I like about it.
All right, Anthony.
I love the scene it's painting. I love searching around and seeing all the characters. Like it's fun for me. I will say, like a part of the perspective does kind of throw me off. It throws me off a lot, and that I do know that a lot of the characters here, some of them should be taller than others, but that's a nitpicky side of me.
Okay. So this was probably one of my least favorite pieces, and not because Eduardo Alcantara wasn't trying. I think he's trying a lot here. I think what he's doing is really difficult, but the black and white, this is a case where black and white doesn't work for me. I if anything, I love the fact that he's trying something different. He's got all these different characters in here, and he's trying to give us a lot of eye candy. And as I said a few minutes ago, he's trying to reward you for repeat view, but it just doesn't ultimately draw me in. I mean, there's a lot of clever things here between Wally, one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time. I love the aspect of these characters being there. I love the Toy Story characters being there. There's a plate of food in front of one of the characters who I don't know who that is. And I thought that plate actually looked really good. I thought that was like a really well illustrated plate. Like it looked like a real plate. I mean, the food looked real. The plate didn't so much. The plate looked kind of wonky, and that's kind of my thing with it, is that as good as elements of this are, then there are other elements that just look really, not quite finished. They don't look as polished. And so when you've got that many characters in the piece and you've got some stuff that just doesn't quite look polished, some of the line work looks a little wonky. A good example of this is the character from Big Hero 6, the big balloon type character. I think his name is Baymax or whatever. Like, he just proportionally looks a little weird, and because he's kind of like a perfect, because he's like kind of like a perfect oval or a perfect kind of cylinder shape, you know, kind of like a balloon. There are moments where he looks kind of lumpy, and so I think pieces like this, you know, it's like you've got to nail those elements. Otherwise, it really takes you out of the piece. And this is an example for me where the artwork not being as secure or as confident, you know, kind of loses its efficiency. So that is my thoughts on that piece. Now, Chiara Reddy is the opponent, and here's Chiara Reddy's piece. Let's start with you, Anthony. What'd you think? What do you make of?
Already, I love the coloring of it, and in terms of the clothing, like I can tell it's very like it's modernized Disney princesses, and I love the Stitch balloon in the background. Like from what I see of the disembodied leaves at the top corner, like this is a daytime scene, so it's very bright at the top. But for the most part, this is very good. I love it, especially the shading on Pocahontas' arms.
Okay, Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I need to speak about Reddy's, coloring style. She did a fantastic job in the last one. This one, again, just as masterful. Even though there's not as much background as the first one, I think it's still a very, masterfully done composition. I can appreciate the characters that she chose to put in this piece, that these are three very strong female Disney characters in a scene, and they're modernized in some way. So I really appreciate, or I really love the composition as well as the content that she put into this piece.
All right, Jen.
Okay, I love this piece. The coloring is masterful. It's just so good. And I really like the three characters. The only thing that bugs me is I wish that Pocahontas's outfit was more updated, like Mulan's, and I forgot her name from Brave.
That Brave? Shit, I thought it was Little Mermaid. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, so because it just looks like her outfit from the Disney movie, and so it would have been nice for an update. But like the coloring, that the light from the sun coming in, it's very good, and she completely nails lighting and coloring. Is just awesome. It's a beautiful picture.
So look, I have talked about heavy hitters in this group, and we have another one. Chiara Reddy is someone who we have Saturday M has dipped around with Chiara Reddy for some time. She was in a group we had called Pilot Manga, which was kind of like a feeder club for Saturday AM, and we discovered a lot of amazing talent from there, and Chiara Reddy was one of them. Chiara Reddy, we've always thought she was super talented enough to do comics and so forth, but she's young, and she wasn't able to make the move when we thought she could, and so we're happy to see that she's continuing to draw. I believe she's from South Africa, so she's a really interesting young woman, and of course, with us loving diversity, we just love ourselves from Chiara Reddy. That said, last year's tournament, Chiara did not make a dent at all. She was bounced out pretty quickly. I remember she did a very lackluster piece for the hacker show, Mr. Robot. And I remember when I saw it, it took me a minute to realize it was her. I kept thinking, like, this girl is a million times more talented than this. And I think that's my point in all this, folks, is to say that this is what art is when you are artists of her talent and you don't have your stuff together. I'm so happy. I'm happy for Chiara to see her really embracing the competition this year, really going into it, because she's had 2 bites at Saturday M, and she's not done well in either one being the March Madness one, and the other being trying to create a comic. And so I'm so happy to see her taking time, continuing to perfect her art, and then entering this competition and really giving it her all. This is a fantastic piece. I admit that I did not know a lot about Disney films and characters, so to be honest with you, I knew Lilo and Stitch. I thought the first girl, and this is how stupid I am, folks, I thought the first girl who was Pocahontas, I thought that was Flintstones. And then when I realized it wasn't Flintstones, I thought it was Moana. And then when someone said Pocahontas, I thought, oh crap. The girl at the end, I thought was Little Mermaid. And then when someone said Brave, I was like, oh yeah, but that movie, Brave. So clearly I'm not the target audience for this, but this is a great piece. And again, being a man who started a company to celebrate diversity in an industry that needs it badly, like anime manga, I have to say, not only am I happy to see Kiara Reddy taking this seriously and being a real competitor to people like Bailey Boutel and the other artists we've talked about tonight as a female artist, but I'm so happy to see that she chose to represent female characters and depict them in a way that is really, really empowering. These are three confident, beautiful, engaging, interesting female characters. Are not busty and this, that, and the other. And I'm really happy about that. And so hats off to Kiara for this. This is a really exceptional piece. I love the background. I love the character work. I love the choices that she made. This is exceptional. This is masterful. Kudos. All right, folks. Next up, we have our next matchup, and this is between, let's see here. Jose Rodriguez versus, and I apologize, I have to do it this way, Delvon Johnson. Another tough one, also because they are doing, they're creating artwork from the same thing, which is The Incredibles. Let's start with you, Jen.
Okay, so this. I really like The Incredibles. I like how they're all drawn. Except for who's the speedy one? I forget his name.
Speed.
Yeah, but
Dash.
Yeah. Dash's chest is a bit elongated, but I think that all the rest of the characters are done quite well. It was interesting putting Maleficent in here. I'm not entirely sure what the point of that was. I just thought it was an interesting choice. The background's very dark, and so Elastigirl's armor, Mrs. Incredible, her hand gets lost up here, and I didn't notice her hand was there for the first time. I thought it just disappeared. But all their poses are very dynamic, and I like their faces. It's an interesting piece. The coloring is also very good.
Okay, Anthony.
I have to agree. I love the coloring. I love shading. Shading is on point. And I would see the crap out of this movie. Incredibles versus Maleficent. This is a great piece.
Morgan?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting mashup. You have an iconic villain like Maleficent with, the superhero family of the Incredibles. I do like the composition. It's very dynamic, although I wish Maleficent was maybe doing a little bit more in the background. The color scheme is good. I mean, that's actually a really good matchup. You've got the red and the green, so that's kind of that works. The only thing that I think is the biggest flaw is maybe Maleficent. She fades in the background a little too much, and we talked about this earlier, doing maybe some rim lighting, or doing something different with the kind of lighting and shadow. I know she's a very dark character in a dark background, but I think that there could have been some different techniques used to kind of help make her stand out. But otherwise, very interesting piece, and I agree, this would be an interesting movie mashup.
So I have to Simon Cowell this thing. You guys are being all poo-poo, nicey nice. Jose Rodriguez, let me say first and foremost, I'm a big fan of his. He has participated in every one of our March Madness competitions. Super talented. He made it into our Final Four. I think the first year we did in 2016. Super talented artist. In fact, I keep looking at Jose Rodriguez thinking, when is he going to do a comic book? Because he's really got the talent for it, clearly. This is a piece that I thought was a neat piece. I thought there was a lot of things I liked about it. Red as a color is difficult. I think one of the reasons that Incredibles is so popular is because, red is a color scheme is a really interesting idea for that type of uniform. And and the movie does it well, and he does it well here. He utilizes red in a really smart way. I think you guys are missing, as artists, some things that are some big flaws here. Mr. Incredible's arms make no sense. He's bending over backwards. We know his body type, and those arms go back further than Wolverine's blades. I mean, that's a wild configuration of his arms. Mrs. Incredible, what's going on with her leg that's kind of up as she's running makes no sense, especially because of your knee-high boots. It really makes no sense. The legs as well for the daughter don't make any sense. Like they're kind of turned slightly in a weird way. And so she looks kind of bizarre. Again, it's because the piece is so well constructed. You know, the layout's really good. The idea behind it's really strong. That your eyes kind of, he's got great use of color, including the energy shield that I think her name is Violet can do. By the way, I like my name for the boy better than your name. You can call him Dash. For me, he is Speed Boy. But that being said, though, yeah, I mean, when you look at the piece enough, all the great things that Jose's done has masked some of the things that you look at and you're like, that makes no sense. Like the Mr. Incredible in particular, like to me, he just stands out like a rocket. That just doesn't make any sense the way he's cocked. I get the idea behind it. Again, conceptually and from a draftsmanship, what he's trying to do is absolutely the way to do it. His execution of it, in terms of the character profiles and so forth, the anatomy of the characters is where he's flawed. And because he's so good at all the other stuff, it masks it, but it really shouldn't, because those should stand out like a rocket to anybody. In fact, I think it's amazing that you guys all point out Maleficent and the fact that she kind of blends into the background versus all the other things that I just mentioned, because they're obviously there. So, you know, it's it. I like the concept. I like a lot of the layout, but there's some pieces here that do fall in the flaws category. Now, with that being said, his opponent, Delvon, goes, screw it, I'm going to get rough with it. And I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here, but this is an interesting piece. This is a visceral piece. Let's start off with you, Jim. What do you make of this?
I think the concept of Jack burning Mr. Incredible's hair off with his laser beams, that's hilarious. I like what's going on there. And like the sheer amount of muscles Mr. Incredible has, that was just, it's super intense and it's a really interesting to look at. I have a feeling that Delvon doesn't like drawing legs. I think in the last image as well, he also managed to obscure the legs. But I think the biggest thing for me is that Mr. Incredible's face is so thin at the bottom there. He has like a huge chin. And that's throwing me off. It doesn't look like him. Like I know it's him because of the costume, but if you just showed me his head, I wouldn't know that it's him.
I agree. I thought that was Speed Boy myself until you said that was Mr. Incredible. I was like, oh, I thought it was Speed Boy, but you know.
Yeah. But lighting is cool and coloring is awesome. But yeah, so that's what I think.
Anthony?
Big, powerful. I love how out there he got with the anatomy. Like it doesn't seem like he was doing too much, even though he did like too much with the muscles. It was too much in a good way. Like and I love the framing. Although I will agree with what Jin said about hiding the legs. Like I see that. But for the most part, this is great. This is a great, hilarious piece.
Morgan?
Yeah, I had kind of the same problem. Like I saw the bald spot and I thought that was kind of a clever idea that, you know, Jack's burdened it off. But his face, he just looks way too young. It looked like Dash's head on top of Mr. Incredible's body. I don't remember his name. For me, I think, you know, the coloring, the style, the exaggeration of the muscles, it's really cool. I like this, you know, kind of action sequence. For me, the thing that stands out is this blur effect, the sort of depth of field is maybe a little too strong overall. There should have been definitely more focus. Like it's very focused in the center still, but it just seems like even what's in the sort of the main part of the characters that we're seeing, that there's still too much blur. So I think that maybe the depth of field effect was a little too strong, or they should have, you know, kind of lessened it a little bit more in the center.
So Delvon Johnson, we've never worked with him before, but we've seen his work many times. He does a comic or a web comic I think he's tried to do. I don't know if he actually does it regularly, called Defenders of Deltopia. Recommend you guys check it out if you want to see more from Delvon. Mega talented. And his first piece last week was a real staple piece to showcase what this tournament was going to look like as we started doing some of our provincial marketing. I'm with everybody. In fact, you guys actually convinced me. That rarely happens, but you convinced me. I was prepared to say this was a dynamite piece. I did not realize this was not Jack Dash Speedboy, whatever his name is. I didn't realize this wasn't this kid until I just realized what you were saying. I guess I had looked at it enough. I hadn't really studied it. I just, because it pops so well when you look at it from a distance, when you look at it quickly amongst all the other images, it stands out so significantly. But now all the critiques that have been raised are completely accurate. There's no legs here. The face does not at all look accurate to Mr. Incredible. And I did go back and look at the Devon's previous piece, and you're right, he does seem to struggle, or at least these last two images he struggled with doing legs. Maybe that's just something he prefers not to do, or he's trying to find creative ways to frame a scene. But in this case, and it works, because in this scene, again, when you first look at it, it's so visceral. The blur effect works so well with it. Jack on top works, that you're just like, oh, okay, well, this is really cool. You don't realize until you really get it, have to study it like we're doing in this event. On the show tonight, you start to see where the frailties come in at. This is a strong piece. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a really strong piece. It's visceral. We talked about this last week about how color can make pieces. It can provide energy. It can provide electricity. This piece has electricity. This piece speaks. This is not a static or stiff piece. This is a very electrifying. The minute you look at it, you're feeling stuff with it because there's stuff going on with it. That being said, the flaws are most certainly there. Like his opponent, Jose Rodriguez, the flaws are there. They're there for anybody to see if you look, and that's the over exaggeration of the muscles for one thing, or a big piece of it. And so I don't know. This is an interesting piece. I love the color work. I love Jack. I love the bit of blur effect, but a lot of flaws here as well. All right, folks, we're about to wrap up Team S here. So again, just to recap, we had Nicholas Gray versus Rosalind Lamar. We had Jiro Dajima versus Barack Sahin. We had Eduardo Alcantara versus Kara Reddy. And we had Jose Rodriguez just now versus Delvon Johnson. Folks, if you want to vote, it's your last chance for Team S. Go to our website, www.saturday-am.com/March Madness. Click the button right here. You can see the screen. You can see the button goes black. Click that. It'll take you to the page to vote, and you can choose the 4 winners you think should emerge from this team. Now, we're at the end, folks. We've got one more team to go. We're going to fly through them because I know this late. We want you guys to get some rest. So we're going to just make this really, really, really simple. And that is, we're going to just basically talk real quickly about Illo sketchbooks. Let me tell you a little bit about Illo sketchbooks, folks. Illo sketchbook. Now these are books. We talked about Comic Draw a few minutes ago. They're one of our sponsors. Illo Sketchbook's another one of our sponsors, folks, and they are fantastic. Now look, we all grow up using conventional drawing tools, and that's not going anywhere. I do think, and I will continue to say, that in the world of digital, in the world we live in today, especially a lot of you fans, our fans are young, you need to learn how to do digital, folks. If it's not just about how you submit your comics, it should be about how you're producing your comics. But we will always, just like we'll always have sliced bread, we will always have physical paper to draw on, and you cannot do better than Illo sketchbooks. These are really durable, really sophisticated looking books, over 100 pages, 122 pounds stock, paper stock, which is really good weight. So when you draw on it with a variety of pencils, inks, and markers, it's not going to bleed through easily. They've got a strap on it that allows you to either save your place in the book and or close the book so that you don't get any frayed paper edges and so forth. This is a fantastic, affordable book, folks. Check it out. We've got discounts we'll be doing as well, 20% off coupons as well. We'll be launching this week. So do us a favor, go to the site to vote. And when you come to this ad, click on the ad and go check out what Illo Sketchbooks is doing. A lot of famous artists are using their products, folks. You don't have to be famous to use it. You just have to be aware of knowing that you want to draw on good paper. And you can't get much better. You can't get a better form factor than Illo Sketchbooks. Check it out, www.illosketchbooks.com. That's Illo, I-L-L-O. All right, our final matchups for the night, folks, and then we're going to reveal who we think should advance, and then you will find out tomorrow morning on the website because we have to calibrate this with your votes that you're going to make tonight. Hopefully you're voting for these groups. Now, our final team is Team A. We got some great artists in here. The theme here is comic books, comic heroes. Take any comic hero and depict them in an iconic pose and or dynamic action scene. And then we said, you know, we're going to give you 20 points or up to 20 points if you're able to creatively work in Turtles, Walking Dead, Archie, or anything else into your comic book fan art. In other words, you know, we know if you think comic book superheroes, you're going to think Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, X-Men, so on. But to then think of Invincible from Image Comics, and think of Walking Dead, and think of Saga, and then to merge these properties with those superheroes would be a really interesting idea. We wanted to award that level of creativity and thinking outside of the box, and that's why we're giving up to 20 extra points for odd pairings. Now, let's get started. Again, it's our final team, and then we'll reveal who we think should walk away with this. Our first group is Jonathan Yuen versus German Leon. These are two great artists who we saw some great work from last week. Jonathan Yuen has Daredevil with the Teenage Mutant Turtles. We're going to start with Morgan. What do you think, Morgan?
So very interesting piece. Definitely a challenging perspective, having the, you know, kind of a bird's eye view looking up at Daredevil falling down. I think the building definition, I mean, part of the problem with this piece is that it's very dark. This is where the rim lighting definitely helped, but I don't think it solved all of those problems. Right now, Mikey and I think Leonardo, those are the two that really stand out to me the most. They're light enough and kind of interesting enough. Donatello, I think when it comes to perspective, he's one of the weaker characters. He just seems very flat in that corner there, and I don't, it would have been interesting or better to kind of have fixed the perspective there. Otherwise, a very dynamic piece with Daredevil, you know, doing this jump.
Okay. Anthony.
With the lighting, like composition as well, although I wouldn't have put Raphael so far away. Then again, that's my bias. He's my favorite. But as for readability, I think Donatello is one of the more readable ones. But for me, this piece really does work. Daredevil makes it work really well.
Jin?
I think this is a really, even though it's supposed to be an odd pairing, I actually think this is a very good pairing. And I think Jonathan has taken in, like, there's a lot of harsh blacks in TMNT and in Daredevil, and he's done that there. There's all this black in the center of Daredevil there, and then there's the harsh black shading on all the turtles. I really like this piece. I would buy this comic if I saw this on the shelf as a cover. I would just buy it.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no way of knowing. We have, you know, we don't talk to these creators, frankly. We have a private group for them, and we kind of make sure that they're kept abreast of the things they're working on, but we don't really talk to them. I do that both by design as well as by necessity. So I don't know what Jonathan Yuen was thinking. I can tell you that as someone in his 40s who grew up when both of these properties were first introduced as comic books in their modern incarnations, in the case of Turtles, the first time it appeared ever, I remember seeing it in the comic book store when the very first issue came out. In the case of Daredevil, I remember when Frank Miller first started doing Daredevil. This was a comic that was meant to make fun of Frank Miller and Klaus Jansson's epic run, and then some of the other kind of super serious Marvel comics at the time. That's what Teenage Mutant Turtles was. It was a parody, just like Cerberus by Dave Sim. If you look at this, and again, I don't know this for Jonathan Yuen. I'm sure after I get done saying this, he'll go, that sounds awesome. Yes, I intended to do that. This feels, from the color palette on Daredevil to some of the blacks being discussed by the other artists, this feels like a Frank Miller circa 1984, 85, Teenage Mutant Turtles. This feels like that interpretation. This feels like a literal interpretation of the heavy blacks and heavy line work, even the pose of Daredevil feels very Frank Miller, Klaus Janson-ish. I like this piece for that reason. It's got a nostalgia feel to it. Again, sometimes artists work that way, sometimes artists don't, but this strikes me like an homage, and an effective homage. Even the fact that the color, in the case of Daredevil's mask, bleeds outside of the mask, and You can actually look in the white moon in the distance. You can see where the line was colored outside. That's how Marvel Comics were colored back in the 80s, folks. It wasn't computer color, so the colors tend to bleed into other things when they're not supposed to. This feels very retro to me, and I like this piece a great deal. His opponent is German Leon. German had a great piece last week, a really confident piece last week with Copic markers featuring like a Teen Wolf type thing. This is Teenage Mutant Turtles. And Jim, what do you think of this?
I think on a technical point, it's pretty much perfect. The line work is so good, and like the way he's a master with Copics.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he went with a crossover. That would have been really cool. But actually, you know how there's like this second version of Michelangelo in the background? Yeah. I actually like that one more. I like that this dark shading that they've done, and I wish that was the one that was in front opposed to this very clean Michelangelo, because I feel that the turtles are really dirty and gritty. So yeah. But yes, on technical point, he masterful. But I do wish that one in the background was the one that was in the foreground.
Yeah, Morgan?
Yeah, no, for a traditional piece and the use of the Copics here, again, this is very good. He had a very good piece in the last round as well. This is one of those moments with the drop shadow with the character that I think was done correctly. We had some other attempts before, but this is really how it should be done. I think maybe the logo, I appreciate the March Art Madness logo at the bottom, but you know, it didn't necessarily need to be there. It kind of stands out too much, but otherwise, yeah, no, it's a fun piece. It's very, very entertaining for Mikey.
Okay, and Anthony.
Like, I'm in love with his Copic usage and the muscle definition. I agree with the others. Like, I do love just how it's inked in the background. Like, I would love that for that dirty turtle to have more prominence. But Frederick, do you think he's going to get any extra points for that logo on the skateboard?
No, not for me. But I mean, I thought it was neat that he did it, but not for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, I throw the word out. I have no problem throwing the word out. I think this is masterful. German Leon is look. Let's throw some markers down here. Copic markers are hard. I hate Copic markers. I hate most people's attempts at Copic markers. We have an artist that I think is phenomenal named Jamie Molina, who does Paradise Down. One of our new series is getting quite popular. I hate when Jamie does Copic markers because I don't think Jamie's very good at Copic markers. I've told Jamie this. Copic markers I think are really, really tough. I think it's a deceptive tool. Folks, if you're out there and you want to spend the money on Copic markers, this is what Copic markers look like when you're really good at it. This is flawless art. This is flawless color. It's funny, you guys all like the after image. I love like the after image and wish that was a primary image. I couldn't disagree more. I love it being the after image because his bread and butter is his Copic use. So he's gonna always use Copic. And German, if you're listening to me, keep doing that. You've got the right fucking idea. That's what you do. You do it better than most artists out there. You keep doing Copic. The fact that you've got this in the background, this feels like, by the way, that feels like a Joe Kubert design with the heavy ink and the heavy lines and stuff with the toning. I love it. I love it as an after image. In fact, that's very Joe Kubert-like. So again, I don't know if Jonathan Ewan, we just talked about the Daredevil Turtles piece. I don't know if Jonathan was attempting to do Frank Miller and Klaus Janson circa 1985. I don't know that German Leon was attempting to do something that evokes Joe Kubert style. Even by the way, folks, I'm talking to my artists here on the call on this chat. Even to Morgan and Jen, who are talking about that back, and Anthony talking about that back image, folks. Joe Kubert, if you guys know who Joe Kubert is, even when Joe Kubert would do his after image just like this, he used the same color. It was always a gray color tone. So I don't know that German is ripping on the Joe Kubert thing, but German, you're doing it right, buddy, and you did right with this. And this is a masterful use of Copics. This is a great image. No extra points for the March Art Madness, but I still give you a lot of props on a personal level for doing it. So that's that. All right, next up we have who do we have here? We have this is, oh crap, sorry. Every time I keep trying to look at the name, it goes away. Christopher Domingo, who had a really cool piece last week of Game of Thrones versus William Collier II. What say you, Morgan?
I can appreciate a lot of the detail that went into some of these characters. I guess this is based off of the movies. The background for me is a little bit weak. Not so much. I mean, there's not as much detail in the smoke. I think that's kind of, and the shading for that didn't really help it either. It would have been nice maybe a little bit to kind of fill that white space. But I think the composition, I like the posing, and I like some of the attempts at kind of creating an action scene for these characters.
All right, Anthony.
Like, I agree with Morgan. Like, I wish that it was like a sewer pipe in the background. Like, I just don't want it to be completely white space. But as for the character designs, I must be the only person that doesn't hate the movie designs, because like I love the detail that you're able to get into this. This is a nice piece. Like, and I like the posing. It's great. It's good.
Man, I don't have an issue with them. I don't have an issue with it. Okay, and then Jim, what do you make?
Okay, so I actually also kind of like the movie designs. I think they did it better in the second movie. I think Raphael and Michelangelo stand out for me. They're really good. Like this arm here that Michelangelo has looks really good. I think Donatello and Leo look unfinished. And I think overall the coloring is holding this back. But if you took out Donatello and Leo, I think that would be a really strong piece of Raph and Mikey.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of turtles. I'm not a fan of turtles, so I can't say that I have a particular concern about the turtles one way or the other. I'm with whoever said that they like the movie designs. I think the movie designs are actually quite clever. I find them nice. In this case, it just seems kind of like a stiff piece to me. I don't buy the sized discrepancies between the characters. I don't buy it for a second. I think, the Raph character looks fantastic. Donatello looks okay, but Leo looks way too small given the perspective that he should have. And Donatello probably looks correct, although the idea that he's coming in on a skateboard like that, the smoke doesn't bother me. It adds to the scene. I mean, it's nowhere near a horrible scene. I like the simplicity of his line work on the legs and stuff like that. He keeps it simple instead of trying to go the full baggy route with the pants. So it doesn't bother me. It's just doesn't grab me either. The color doesn't grab me. The concept doesn't grab me. The poses don't grab me. None of this grabs me. And so that from that standpoint, I can say that I'm not blown away by this. But I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about it. The worst thing I can say is that Leo strikes me as being too small for that scene. All right, and he's up against William Collier II. This appears to be Archie and Teenage Mutant Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo, and I don't know who the black dude is. So let's. Oh, that's from Walking Dead. That's Michonne from Walking Dead. Oh my God. All right. What do you think, Jen? You go first.
I like that they they've put odd pairings of every single title that you listed in the
yes
in the bonus points. They're really going for it. I like that Archie holding a shotgun. That's a nice visual. I feel like it's a bit squished.
It is.
And if it just like
feel that it is.
Yeah. If it just stretched out a little bit more, I think filling up the space would be better, and it would make the image stronger overall. It's a cute piece. The background is not really anything. They could have done something much more clever with the background if you don't want to draw it. Yeah. It's very, it's cute. It's a cute concept.
All right, Morgan.
I agree. I think it's fun, that they tried to put all these characters together, preparing for this fight. Although I think it's kind of disappointing that they only did a little bit. On the far right, you've got the shadow of a monster that they're supposedly fighting, and then on the left side, it almost looks like small shadows of palm trees. So that was a detail that maybe could have been explored further. The background is definitely the most difficult thing that detracts from this piece, particularly the perspective. Donatello and Mikey in the back, they look like twice the size as the characters in front, and it's just part of the perspective problem. So, but otherwise, I mean, again, it's good effort trying to get all these characters in one piece like this.
Anthony?
This is an odd piece. I embrace how odd it is, but like if they were gonna be that scrunched together, I would love for them to have been surrounded by zombies, like completely.
Right.
Yeah. Like it would have done something better with the background too, because like one of the other judges said, like it looked like they didn't want to draw it, so they went bare minimum. But I love how everybody is jumbled there. I wish they were a bit more on level, but part of me doesn't wish that, because I still get to see them and recognize them.
Yeah, this is I just come back to what I said earlier. So, artwork or design means knowing when less is more. And this is the case where less would have been more. This is the case like the piece that I talked about earlier with the I can't remember what it was, but so many it was a Street Fighter, and you had Link in the background and stuff. But when the only thing that really worked on the piece was Mario versus Bowser and Kirby in the distance. Folks, this is a piece, again, I concur with everybody. The idea here is really neat. But did you need to have Usagi Yojimbo in here? No, you didn't. Did you? Which, by the way, if he's ripping, if William is trying to do everything I said in the notes, well, I didn't mention Usagi Yojimbo. So he threw Usagi Yojimbo in there. He's got Archie, which Archie doesn't need to be in here. He's got April, which April doesn't need to be in here. He's got Michonne, which, Michonne isn't done justice. It takes quite a bit to look at it and think Michonne is a girl. Look, at the end of the day, what would have made this piece great is had he gone with less characters, maybe Michonne and the Turtles, and therefore had more room to kind of position them and really get into what they were doing. Put a background in there. He could have put a brick wall if he's not that skilled in backgrounds, which I suspect is probably the case. He could have had them against a brick wall and use shadow and some disembodied hands coming off from the corners to be zombie hands and so forth. And that would have given, with some good lighting, would have given this piece a real edge and a real urgency, which is what the piece details. The fact that you've got these kind of cartoony looking zombies in shadow form in the distance, you got this infinite background loop that doesn't provide any context for how the characters are framed. In other words, it's just a bitmap that he places characters on top of, really hurts this piece. It's not a badly drawn piece. All the turtles look like turtles. Archie looks like Archie. Usagi Yojimbo looks like Usagi Yojimbo. There's a lot here to admire in terms of what William's style could be. But on the flip side, the weaknesses of what William possibly has in his quiver, much like we've talked about, maybe some people who can't draw feet trying to mask it. The deficiencies he has here, which I assume are backgrounds and stuff, are really on display here. And instead of trying to hide what he's doing with all these extra characters, attempting a background would have given this piece so much more competitive nature to Christopher Domingo. So there you go. All right, last matchup here, folks, and we're about to wrap this whole bad boy up. Will be second to last. Terry Vincent Jr. versus my favorite named competitor in the group, Jibs Abiola. That is really his name. It's awesome. And let's look at Terry Vincent Jr. He has a Spider-Man piece here with the Turtles. I'll go first and just say that this has a design to it. There's a style with Spider-Man that is different from what Terry Vincent. No, actually, it's not different. Terry Vincent did that brilliant piece last week with Mr. T, which was really gorgeous, great color. I love the look of Mr. T, which was very stylized. I thought this piece was nowhere near as good as that piece, but I'm so happy to see that Terry Vincent Jr. has a style. Out of all the people that we've had on tonight, Terry Vincent Jr. has a style, and that's become very evident. And I like his style. I mean, he's kind of like Jalen Tate Lucas. He's got a style. He draws characters to his style, not the other way around. And I like that so much. The Spider-Man is funky. It kind of looks like an independent, kind of 1970s independent underground comic book version of Spider-Man, and I like it. The Turtles don't really interest me as much, but they're okay, I guess. But they to me are really afterthoughts. Just Spider-Man in this piece would have been enough for me to really dig it. In fact, had he got rid of the Turtles, or maybe just had one turtle in the background, and given Spider-Man not just the great pose he's got him in, but then done something with the webbing, this piece could have really been a rock star piece. But all in all, I do like this piece a great deal. Anthony?
Like, to give the turtles more prominence in this, I would have made Spider-Man and them about the same size, because, like, while you say you didn't really like the turtles that much, like, I love how stylized they are in this. Like it's weird, but for me, it's in a good way. Terry Vincent Jr., love your style.
Jen?
I love that Terry's like pushed all the dynamic poses he can. Like everyone is not doing something boring. Mikey is my favorite in this piece. I think Spider-Man's my favorite comic book character of all time. And I don't think this quite nails Spidey for me. I know that his style is like overemphasizing, but like I think Spider-Man's shoulders should be up in front, and his hands are a bit wonky for me, so that's distracting from the whole piece. But I think I would have a sticker of that Mikey. I think that Mikey is awesome.
All right, Morgan.
Yeah, no, I liked the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the background. I like the glow effect that he's doing for them. Obviously, the colors match the characters. It kind of adds to the background. It's not just a completely dark background. The one thing, and I mean, Jin kind of hinted at it, the hands are backwards. The thumbs are on the wrong side of, he's got his left hand on his right arm and his right hand on his left arm. That's, in terms of like proportions or in terms of anatomy, that was like the biggest major flaw I saw. But no, I agree. I like Vincent's style. I like how clean it is, and I like the contrast of colors. It's an interesting piece.
All right, and next up is his opponent, Jibs Abiola. What do you think of this, Morgan?
I like the idea. Again, we had a piece that was similar that tried to do a sort of comic interpretation of a scene that was happening. For me, this wasn't nearly as dynamic, or just the way that the panels were set up, or the fact that that middle panel with the text and the very small image of Archie, it kind of took away from maybe the impact of this particular scene. And I think if anything, the bottom panel could have just been the whole piece, and that would have been an interesting enough piece that we didn't necessarily need to have this kind of first part that otherwise doesn't have anything kind of leading up to it, or any kind of segue into that final piece. Art-wise, again, the line work maybe could have been cleaned up a little bit, but again, kind of a good effort of having all these kind of characters and this sort of interesting scene.
Anthony?
I will agree. The final panel does speak for itself, but this whole piece did make me laugh because it just looks like Archie's about to go head first into a warehouse with the Joker and a crowbar. But I do like the color choice, very old-timey comic book, like the newsprint comic book. This is great. This is great.
Jen?
Okay, so I think this is a really fun concept. I like the idea of Archie becoming a Robin. I have issues with the first panel. There's Red Hood, and I think he's supposed to be leaning up against a wall, but it looks like he's just standing on one leg. Mm-hmm. There's no indication that there's no wall there, and it would make no sense that Red Robin is also behind. That stuff is distracting me, and I also wish that they didn't draw Archie in the Archie comic style, because in that fine copy pasted, I know he hasn't, but it looks like he's copy pasted a panel of Archie and put it on top of another piece. And maybe it's because there's flat coloring on Archie, and if he did the dynamic shading he did on the other characters, he'd fit in a bit more. But that really distracts me on that last panel.
So again, folks, occasionally I have to step in here and be the voice of brutal reality versus the three artists who, I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're trying to be too nice. This is a regression from what Jibs Aliola did the first week. So if I want all you guys to go back, scroll down to the bottom of the March Madness page and look at what Jibs did the first week. He did a Star Trek Next Generation piece, which had really good color in it. The color was it popped. It had some vibrancy to it. He did some redesign of the Star Trek Next Generation uniforms, including my favorite, Geordi LaForge. He gave him a real plate as opposed to that little silly girl's hairnet that he has as a eye. Oh God, that's just, every time I think of what they did to that brother, I feel angry on a black man level. It's ridiculous what they did to Geordi. But that being said, though, that piece was I mean, you can see some frailties with character design, anatomy and things of that nature, but it still worked. This does not work at all. Conceptually, yeah, okay, it's got some pieces here regarding the conceptual aspect to it. But look, the very first panel, Jason Todd leg is, I guess, up against the wall. There is no wall. They're just kind of standing in various places. Archie looks like he is 3 foot tall next to Nightwing. How in the hell any of you guys saw this and call it is beyond me. Archie looks like he's literally a baby next to a bunch of adults. That makes no sense. Not to mention that Nightwing doesn't look like he's in the same space with Jason Todd or the other 2 characters. And then not to mention the fact that Batman looks weird. Like, Batman is this from in the back, and he's staying next to Archie. Why does Archie look so small? Why does Batman look kind of in a weird position? Why is it angled where they're all going down? Like they're all, like, the camera is angled where they're all leaning to the right, even though they shouldn't be. I mean, just because the panel is angled where it's going down to the right doesn't mean that the scene has to be angled down to the right, unless you have some stylized thing going on here. And I think it's safe to say that Jizz does not have the talent to do that. Then we get the welcome to the Archie family. Folks, I could not invent a better ad for Comic Draw than this page. The lettering of the speech bubble is amateurish. Get a professional grade lettering tool for this Comic Draw. The layout would have been helpful because it's got a perspective guide. It would have told you this makes no sense. These characters are out of, they do not line up the way they're supposed to line up. You got characters in the background who don't line up. The perspective guide and Comic Draw would have told you that. And then the last image, where is Nightwing's leg at? What is his leg doing? And you guys are saying the only problem with this is that Archie looks out of place. No. All of this looks out of place. Every last bit of this looks out of place. I admire the idea here from Jizz, but this is a scenario where I think on full display are some of the things that Jib lacks in terms of his ability to execute the scene. Anatomy, a sense of space, a sense of perspective, camera angles, page layout, all of this is on display as frailties. And this is what's great about the tournament, is that he gets to see all of this on display. He gets to see what it looks like when you execute this stuff well. A+ for effort, A+ for idea, but this is nowhere near competitive to the previous to his competitor in this particular matchup, because so much of this doesn't sync up with each other. The idea here is not served by the execution at all. Last but not least, we have Kalani Corbett with the Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and a Turtles. Now, folks, this had a little bit of a controversy to it because when she submitted this, she didn't really explain to me what I was looking at. This looked like a Instagram pic, and I know Kalani from Instagram, and I thought, well, we would never accept a picture like this from Instagram. And of course, then you have to look at it, and then she explained it to me that I had to see that she actually did do this in the right way, but I didn't know it initially. So I have a lot of thoughts about this piece, but let me start off with you guys. What do you think, Jen?
Well, I love that it's an Instagram timeline. I think that's something that Mikey would definitely do if he ever met up with Spider-Man. So I really dig this, and I also like the crazy perspective on the background here. It doesn't really make sense, but it also gives you that idea of what it's like to swing around New York and like how crazy it would be in your head. I think it's super dynamic, and I really love this piece.
Morgan?
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was a very inventive way of showing these characters. I wish it wasn't cut off at the top and the bottom. I wasn't sure if that was just how it showed up on our page. I love the lighting. I love the coloring. The lens flare effect, I think, is actually really cool. That adds to it, although it looks weird, almost like the web is transparent. But otherwise, no, it's a really strong piece overall.
Anthony?
Like, I love just about everything about this piece, the perspective, the jet trail in the background from like his rocket skateboard, and it had me going with the Instagram pieces, I almost thought you pulled it straight from Instagram, like it was a screenshot or something. But this is part of the piece. It was worked ingeniously in. I love it.
Yeah, so I did think this was part of Instagram, and I actually didn't run the piece initially because I thought it was from Instagram. So So this is not my favorite piece. This is not a piece I think is nearly as strong as you guys are making it out to be. And I think Kalani Corbett is one of the most talented young female creators, or young creators, period. But I love the fact, obviously, because I care about getting more women into comics. I love the fact that she's a young woman of color at that. So I love all of that. But this is not, to me, a strong piece for a variety of reasons. I love all the things you guys mentioned. I love the lens of the sun rising in the background. I love the speed lines. I love the fact that Mikey's one doing this. You don't, if you're going to do something like this, there's no reason to cut off, to do this weird edit, this weird crop. There's no reason to do it. Like, you sell it for what it is. You want this to be an Instagram pic, then sell it as an Instagram pic. Give us the full length of this. Let us see that Mikey McDude. Let's see exactly what his icon is. Let us see what the comments are. Give us the full presentation. When you don't do that and you just give us snippets of it, you're hinting at what makes this special. You're hinting at some cleverness in the idea, but ultimately you're failing to really live up to the potential of it. Again, I like the idea of this a great deal. Even the execution of it, though, I think Kalani is capable of doing a lot more. But I do like the color. I do like the lens flare. I do like the blur effect. I do like the concept to it. But I just look at it and think, man, this could have been more. She took a risk and she succeeded mostly with the risk. But I think this could have been more. I wish she had gone the full distance with it to really create something that would stand out significantly. Not just in terms of this matchup, but in terms of the entire team and the entire competition for round 2. So an interesting piece to me. Her competitor, the final matchup of tonight, is Montez Jones. This is a variety of X-Men, Archie, and Justice League. Morgan, you go.
So yeah, I thought this was an interesting piece. I think some of the details, took away from this a little bit. The background has a really hard edge to it, when it should be maybe a little bit more faded, so it doesn't pop quite as much. Like it's almost like there's like this cardboard mountain in the background. It's kind of what it feels like. The character in the front, or the blue character, I don't know who that is. I think Iceman. Okay, I assumed it was an ice-related character. I like the lighting that they did to kind of show that there's some reflection, in the material. But the actual ice particles, the way that they're blurred and the way that they're drawn in the space, they almost look like they're coming at us, like they're coming from Green Lantern rather than shooting away from this character. And the effects on there are not quite as good. Ice is a very difficult thing to draw, so I commend the effort. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, putting Archie in the scene, I'm assuming that's Archie. I can't get over the face. I think it's funny, but otherwise, it's just kind of throwing the character in there isn't entirely necessary, even if you just want those bonus points.
Anthony,
for the ice, I would have gone for a white outline. I mean, they went for a green outline on Green Lantern's construct, so why not go all the way? As for position, I can see the whole cardboard mountains and the 4 feet from Green Lantern in the background. But if anything, I would have made the focus with having Archie be a little bit more off to the side. Like, oh, hey, did you spot him? But I do love his face. That is funny. That is a funny face.
Jen?
I think the color choice in this picture is very good. I really like the sunset, and it contrasts really well with the blue of Iceman and the green of Green Lantern. But yes, what Morgan was pointing out before, it looks like the ice is going away from Green Lantern opposed to towards Green Lantern, with the blur effect there. And Archie, as much as funny as his face is, I wish if they wanted to put Archie in for those bonus points, I wish that they utilize Archie in another way opposed to, oh, look, he's there and he's reacting to this. It seems like a waste, or he shouldn't be there. And yeah, the backgrounds are a bit flat as well. But the pose that Iceman's in is actually quite good. Green Lantern's is very generic, but the anatomy is pretty good on these characters.
I like this piece a lot. I think all y'all are crazy. I like this piece a lot. First of all, Green Lantern is smashing through something. Now, could it have been done better? Of course, but he's smashing through something hence why the ice is going backwards. I agree with Anthony that Montez should have gone with a different line choice, line color for the ice to give it more of the look that he gave the green construct. I love the anatomy with Iceman. I love the anatomy with John Stewart. I love the anatomy with Archie. I love the color scheme. This is folks, this is old school art. This is why I'm on this damn thing. This is, first of all, it's my company, but the reason I'm on this thing is because I'm older than all these guys. And this is Kurt Swan. This is Joe Stanton. This is, or Joe Staten, sorry. This is classic Carmen D, shit, forget his name. Al Milgram, Carmen D, crap, I can't think of his name. But this is old school art. The color is fantastic. If you want to see a modern interpretation of old school artwork, I implore you to go look online. You can find it on YouTube. Go look for Batman Brave and the Bold, the cartoon series. John crap, I forget his name. John Tucker, I think his name is. He is about my age. He grew up in the with comics like I did, reprints of 1960 comics, and then a lot of comics from the 70s and early 80s. He grew up in that era, about the same age, and he wanted to create a show that gave homage to that. He created Batman Brave and the Bold. If you look at the color palette of that, it is synonymous with this. I don't know if Montez Jones is a fan of that, but I saw it. It brought a gigantic smile on my face. Proportions of this. When I talked about Kalani's piece earlier, and I said, to me, this is not one of her strongest pieces. And for all the little things that I think everyone was responding to, getting, the Instagram piece, which is cut off, the lens flare, the blur lines, and so forth. This piece, the anatomy in that piece wasn't great. And Kalani, has a cartoony style, of course, and that's okay. But in this piece, you've got the stylized look of Archie, and you still got great proportions. The poses are poses you would have seen in these old classic comics that we're talking about. You could even put Steve Ditko in that race. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. And Archie being there, I didn't take it as being detracting. I just took it as Archie. I took it as being what he was in all the other images we saw for Team A, where Archie was a part of it, from William Collier to Jibs Abiola. And that is Archie saying, I do not belong here. And he's got a look that says, I do not belong here. And that is what makes his inclusion in it for the first time tonight make all the sense in the world. I love this piece. All right, so folks, that's our list. Now we're going to take just a few minutes. I'm going to want my three creators to wrap up their choices for who they think needs to advance in each one of the matchups. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we will actually post who ultimately won. Believe it or not, there's more work to be done, and you get to play a role in it. You've got 10 minutes or so to go in and vote. You can see on the screen here, if you go to the bottom of Team A, and put your cursor right above where it says vote Team A, press here. You then can vote on what we talked about. Do you think that Terry Vincent Jr. Was better than Jibs Abiola? Or do you think Kalani Corp was better than Montez Jones? Do you think earlier on in Team S, did you think that Jose Rodriguez was better than Delvon Johnson? You get to decide. You get to decide, and that plays a role in what decision we make for tomorrow morning, or for later tomorrow, for later today. Around 10 a.m., you get to see what those choices are. Again, you can choose to vote, and that helps to play a role in whether or not these guys will advance. While my artists and judges are making their final selections, we'll reveal them here in a few minutes. I want to tell you guys about 21 Draw. This is one of our other sponsors, our final sponsor for the event. You can find out everything about them at 21-draw.com. And folks, if you're looking for art books that can help you become a better artist, you cannot do better than 21 Draw. This is like the old school books you used to buy at Target or Walmart. Your mama bought them for you. These books are far better than that, folks. They're hardbound. They cost about $50 a pop. They feature over 100 professional grade artists, from Jeffrey Chamba to Ariel Olivetti, Marvel Comics Ariel Olivetti, to the classic, the great, the legendary Steve Rude, and then 90-some other creators. You owe it to yourself to check out these guys. They've got a university program coming as well, where you can actually take some classes online to learn how to draw better and get hands-on from these great creators on how to draw things like hands, feet, background, all things we talked about tonight with some of these creators. You can get that specific tutorials directly from 21 Draw. Check them out, www.21-draw. And don't forget, folks, if you're on our website, and if you like to draw, I know a lot of people like to listen to our communication and critiques of folks while they're drawing. Last week's video is right there, folks. Go click on the video for March Art Madness 2018 Round 1 review, and you get fantastic commentary from Jen, who's here with us tonight, Morgan, who's here with us tonight, David Yoon, who is the creator of Spoon, and of course myself, as we evaluate 64 pieces of extraordinary artwork from talented creators around the world. Likewise, folks, while those guys are finishing up their choices, you love Saturday AM, we hope you do, because we want you to go subscribe. Saturday AM provides the world's most diverse shonen manga anthology. We feature some amazing characters, such as Clock Striker, shonen manga's first black female lead character, Dante of Soul Beat, Zan and Zero from Zero King of Thieves, Nilai Rao, the lead character of Massive Multiplayer World of Ghosts, is one of shonen manga's first Indian American lead characters, and we feature creators from all over the world. Literally, we have creators from Nicaragua to New Zealand to Nigeria and all countries in between. Folks, you can sign up to subscribe for Saturday AM right now. If you do our premium subscription, you also get Saturday PM. That's a brand new magazine that we have devoted to more adult content. So if you love Naruto and Dragon Ball, Saturday AM. If you love Gantz or Berserk or Attack on Titan, then you might like Saturday PM. Check it out. The premium subscription gets you both of these digital, high-end, world-class magazines produced by us, featuring extraordinary exclusive creators from all around the world, folks. Folks, if you want to support indie creators, you got no other choice except for Saturday AM and Saturday PM. Check it out and support us. We have the best deals in comics. You get tons of content for a low price. All right, that is everything. We're now going back up the ladder here. Round 2. This is it, folks. We're going to talk about who we think advance from each one of these matchups. And remember, while our votes are not the only votes, we do have highly significant votes. There's a good chance who we say advances will advance. There's also a good chance that we can have a tie since there are 3 of us. So all that being said, folks, or 4 of us, sorry. Let's jump into it. Let's begin. Are you guys ready? Jen, Anthony, Morgan?
I'm good to go.
All right, then. It sounds like a very excitable group. All right. Team C, ladies and gentlemen. This was Hanna-Barbera. There was a theme. And the first up was CJ Okinwa versus Longelini Vemba. Morgan, who do you think won this matchup?
I have to give it to Vemba.
Okay, so Longelini Vemba, folks, you're looking at his piece right here. This is not, I'm not choosing who gets it here. So, all right, who do you think gets it, Jen?
Longelini Vemba.
All right, Anthony, who do you think gets it?
Longelini Vemba.
Longelini Vemba, folks, I am going to make it a straight 4-way. I think that Longelini Vemba had the best approach to character design with these characters. A lot of problems with Longelini's piece here, but he had the best approach to character designs here. The pendulum swings to Longelini Vemba, and that's who we think is going to advance from this matchup. Next up, the matchup is Amber Valdez Council versus Jacqueline Renee. What say you, Anthony? Who advances out of this?
Amber.
What do you say, Jen?
Amber.
What do you say, Morgan?
I gave it to Amber.
I agree as well. So we're a perfect 4-way sweep. I think Amber Valdez Cancel had the most dynamic color in this matchup. Jacqueline suffered some perspective issues and such. And so I think this piece really, really deserves to move forward. And it looks like it just might. Next up, the matchup is Charles Williams with Galaxy Trio versus Malcolm Prince with the Herculoids, 2 classic 1960s Hanna-Barbera TV shows. All right, Morgan, who advances?
I went with Charles Williams.
Jen, who advances?
Charles Williams.
Anthony, who advances?
It's got to get Malcolm. I love the weirdness.
You say what?
Malcolm, I love the weirdness.
Okay, all right. We're going to go with, I go with Charles Williams. I don't know what the hell Anthony was even talking about. Charles Williams, folks, I think is going to advance out of this group. We'll see if I'm right, but I think you cannot beat the figure work in this piece. The figure work in this is some of the best anatomy in the entire group tonight, and that includes some big name artists. This is some good stuff here from Charles Williams. All right, last matchup of Team C: Gary Lytle with his Scooby-Doo piece versus Flintstones versus the Jetsons by Keone Pinckney. Tough matchup. Anthony, who do you think advances?
Gary.
Who do you think advances, Jen?
Gary Lytle.
Who do you think advances, Morgan?
Gary Lytle.
And I think that Keone Pinckney, because I think the color here is so much stronger than what Gary did. So I happen to disagree with the folks, but they got me beat on this. So perhaps it will be Gary Lytle who advances from this group. Gary, I'm telling you right now, you're moving into the Sweet 16. If you get out of this group, you're gonna have to do something with the color. You got to figure something out with the color if that is you and you advance. All right, that was Team C, ladies and gentlemen. So again, you can affect it. We're still going. If you want to vote, you just click on the button right here. Vote for Team C. And if you disagree with us, maybe your votes can help sway it over. Not to mention the bonus points; they will play a big role in this thing. Folks, by the way, don't forget to subscribe to Saturday AM. Issue 82 is out. It features the work of Jay Oden, one of our new creators, our new exclusive creators, with Hammer. If you haven't checked out kick-ass one-piece type work, folks, look at that artwork. Look at that cover. Hammer. It's already getting great reviews from our fan base. Check it out. You can get it for 99 cents, or you can subscribe for $5 and get 20 issues a year of Saturday AM. Best deal in comics. Check it out. Team B matchups, round 2. This was Nintendo versus Capcom. This is probably one of the most competitive teams in the group. We're going to start up with Elijah Alexander versus Richard Milhouse. It's going to be a tough one, folks. Anthony, this is Elijah Alexander versus Richard Milhouse. Anthony, what do you say?
Richard.
Morgan, what do you say?
Richard Milhouse.
Jen, what do you say?
Richard Milhouse.
And I must agree, Richard Milhouse gets it. I love the way he did the Pikachu. I thought it was brilliant how he put the electricity together. I wish he'd gone a bit more over the top of the electricity on the blue side for Blanca, but you can't beat the anatomy, the creativity, the design, the color palette to some degree. Fantastic. Bailey Boutel versus Huzaifa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Jen, what do you say?
I'm going to give a big shout out to Huzaifa, but I'm going to have to go with Bailey Boutel.
All right. What do you say, Morgan?
Same here. Bailey Boutel, but props to Huzaifa for his piece.
What do you say, Anthony?
I'm sorry, Huzaifa. Got to give it to Bailey.
And Huzaifa, I'm not going to say, I got to give a shout out to Huzaifa, because I know deep down, Huzaifa, if you're anything like me, you saying, the hell with y'all. Give me a damn shout out and I don't win the damn tournaments. It's screw all three of y'all. Don't worry, his life. You ain't got to tell me that, because I'm saying Bailey Boutel all the way. All right, let's see. Next up, we have Olivia Lynn versus Kartik Sainsate. Jen, who advances?
Kartik Sainsate.
Morgan, who advances?
Kartik Sainsate.
Anthony, who advances?
Kartik Sainsate.
I must agree. I will say, because I think Olivia is probably a very cool person, and I did love the color that she chose there. So I will give Olivia a shout out. Huzaifa was great, but give me a break. Huzaifa was like, y'all go to hell. Olivia, though, probably appreciate it. Olivia, you did a great job. I do like the color that you put there. Your background was bitmapped to death, though. But this piece is great. I didn't mind the pixelized background. I thought it worked wonders for what it was supposed to do. Could have been black and white. Kartik, you were one of my favorites round 1. This is a really strong piece round 2. Kartik, I think you're going to be hell to pay for people in round 3. I think you're going to be a real challenge, whoever gets you in the next matchup. That's if Kartik makes it, so we'll see. Last matchup for Team B, Jeff Duvall versus Jalen Tate Lucas. Morgan, what say you?
Jalen Tate Lucas.
Anthony, what say you?
Jalen Tate Lucas.
Jen, what say you?
Jalen Tate Lucas.
I love Jeff Duvall. I think Jeff Duvall's a good guy. I'm not saying this because I know Jeff probably is like, the hell with you, Frederick. But I think Jeff Duvall's a great guy. I like his talent. He's very creative. But Jalen Tate Lucas, there are times when you do this job and you get excited. It's what is to come. And that's how I feel about Jalen Tate Lucas. I'm excited as to what is to come. I can't wait to see what other images he dreams up, because he's creative in everything he does. All right, folks. That was Team B. That was remember Nintendo versus Street Fighter or Nintendo versus Capcom, however you want to look at it. You can change the outcome by voting. Go to vote for Team B right here, click it, and make your votes. You still got time. Next up, Team S matchups. Disney movies. It can be live action, it can be anime, but Disney movies. Our first up is Nicholas Gray versus Rosalind Lamar. I would say the most difficult matchup of the night. That's what I would say. What say you? Oh, here's Nicholas Gray, and then here is Rosalind Lamar for people checking it out. All right. Tough one. Morgan, what do you say?
Oh, don't make me go first. They're both phenomenal, it's got to be said, but I think in the end, I would choose Nicholas Gray.
All right. Anthony, what do you say?
Rosalind Lamar and his sexy Jafar.
What? So corny, ladies and gentlemen. So corny. Read Mutton Chop, ladies and gentlemen. If you like that, you read Mutton Chop. What do you say, Jen?
Nicholas Gray.
I am going to just be a spoiler in this and going to say Rosalind Lamar. I actually had not studied how involved. In fact, I'm going to tell you what did it. I was Nicholas Gray all the way. And when I heard the thing about the smoke, I had to look at the picture again. And that's when I started looking at all the detail going in, including the feathers on the bird. Rosalind Lamar kicked ass. Look, nobody loses whoever goes forward because these are two phenomenally talented artists. But you know what? This deserves to be a tough one. And Rosalind Lamar gets my vote. So we got a split, our first split of the night.
I'm
folks.
So happy that this is a split. It's not up to us.
It feels better.
First split of the night. Okay, Giro Dejima versus Barack Saheen. Jen, what say you?
Barack Saheen.
Anthony, what say you?
I gotta give it to Jiro and his wrinkles.
Morgan, what say you?
Barack Saheen.
And I as well am splitting this time. I'm with Anthony and his grade school rapping. I think Giro Dejima here. I think, look, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to, folks. These are both kind of like what we just saw with Nicholas Gray and Rosalind Lamar. These are both two images that have enough stuff in them that they should advance. And against different competition, they probably would have advanced. But the reality here is that at the end of the day, you got to just choose something that stands out to you. And in this case, what stands out to me is a piece that has personality. It's often said, Todd McFarlane, the great Todd McFarlane said this, that the mistakes that you make, the things that you do that are meant to help you get done with a piece of artwork faster, that's where style comes from, right? If you don't like drawing feet, you figure out a way to draw feet. You figure out a way to draw a belt. You figure out a way to hide someone's waist. You figure out a way to draw their hair. The Japanese, of course, pioneered this with the spiky hair. When you the thing that you do that makes it faster for you to create content is ultimately what defines your style. And in this case, you can't look at these two pieces and you look at them, and the thing that does look odd and stand out is Giro Dejima. Barack's stuff just looks perfect. It looks beautiful. It looks nice. It's not tacky. It's not like gorgeous. It's just a really, really solid piece. Giro's piece is none of those things either, but it does stand out. It's got personality, and that's why I went with it. So we got another split, folks, another split. Two splits in what is probably going to be the group of death when it's all said and done. Next up, Eduardo Alcantara versus Chiara Reddy. Jen, what say you?
Chiara Reddy.
Anthony, what say you?
Chiara Reddy.
Morgan, what say you?
Chiara Reddy.
I also am Chiara Reddy. Chiara, I'm going to tell you this right now. You have so much potential. I had you pegged as being a rock star a couple of years ago in Pilot Manga. You let me down. You didn't go through with the stuff you needed to. Last year, you let me down in March Madness. I hope by you getting in the Sweet 16, if that's what happens, that you recognize that you deserve to be on the same stage as every other creator we've talked about tonight with accolades. But it's on you to prove whether or not you truly deserve to be there. Don't squander the opportunity that we may give you tonight. Earn your place and make yourself a hero in this situation. Become the star that I think you can be. All right, next up, Jose L. Rodriguez versus Delvon Johnson. Another tough one, I think. Anthony, what do you think?
Delvon Johnson. I'm a sucker for beefy guys.
Yeah.
I didn't read it like that.
Jen, what do you think, Jen?
Delvon Johnson this round.
What do you think, Morgan?
Yep, Delvon Johnson.
I have to agree. I think, look, Jose Rodriguez has been in our last 2 tournaments. I feel like I know him, even though I've never met him before in my life. I don't think I've ever even talked to him. I feel like I know him. I have a great deal of affinity for him. At the end of the day, as I said, sometimes the mistakes that you make are what give you style, and they're what stand out. There's a passion in them. This piece has God knows how many mistakes in it, but it grabs you. It grabs you the minute you see it. His piece last week was a signature piece. Delvon's got real talent. He's got real obstacles. He's got real talent. We'll see how far he can go, but I think that this piece deserves to push him through to the next round if that's what happens. All right, folks, that is it for Team S. We have one more team to go. Again, you can change what happens. You can help direct what happens by voting right here. Put that cursor on Vote for Team S and vote. All right, last but not least, Team A. Comic book superheroes was a theme. Our first challenge is Jonathan Yuen versus German Leon. Oh, crap. Here we go. All right. Jonathan Yuen. All right. So that's Jonathan Yuen's piece. Here's German Leon's piece. Yuen versus Leon. Begin. Anthony, what do you think?
It's a German.
Do I say it again?
German.
German. Okay. What do you think, Morgan?
German Leon.
Jim, what do you think?
Jonathan Yuen.
Jonathan Yuen. All right. I would love to split the both here because I do believe that Jonathan Yuen did a Frank Miller, Klaus Janson piece, which appeals to me. I grew up in that era, but I am a sucker for people who are good at what they do. And German Leon twice now has proven that he is a fucking beast on comics, ladies and gentlemen. Folks, sometimes you got to curse, and that's the time when you got to curse. He is a damn beast when it comes to comic markers, and that man deserves to go on to the next round. Let's see if that's what happens, but fantastic use of comics, so you can't beat that. All right, next matchup is Christopher Domingo versus William Collier II. Morgan, who goes first?
Christopher Domingo.
Anthony?
Christopher Domingo.
Jen?
Christopher Domingo.
I agree. Christopher Domingo is a clean sweep. I think he's going to advance in this particular round. I think both pieces had their flaws, but there's no question in William Collier's place. Again, this is a question of trying to throw in the kitchen sink when really all you need to do is really pick something, perfect it, try your best at it, and let the chips fall where they may. He could have done a background. He could have put more emphasis on the being surrounded by zombies. Turtles and Michonne from Walking Dead is a great pairing, but he chose to squander that by throwing in the kitchen sink and not giving us a background, not giving us any tension. And so Christopher Domingo's piece, by definition of what William couldn't do or failed to do, succeeds. I don't think it's the strongest piece, but I think it's strong enough. All right, folks, we're getting towards the end here. We have Terry Vincent Jr. versus Jibbs Abiola. Tell me, Jen, that Jibbs will survive.
Terry Vincent Jr. will survive.
Oh, my goodness. Anthony?
Terry Vincent Jr.
That's because you're a sucker for turtles. Morgan?
Terry Vincent Jr.
I must agree, Terry Vincent Jr. There's an artist, a funky artist, literally from the 70s. Hell, even like Phil Foglio. There's some artists that I remember as a kid who had a style like Terry Vincent, and they were very, quirky, usually independent artists. Sometimes they might get a chance to do like a charity appearance or a couple of pages in a Marvel or DC comic. He reminds me of that. I think Terry Vincent is a real talent. I love his style. I hope he advances. And last but not least, folks, we have Kalani Corbett versus Montez Jones. Anthony, what say you?
Kalani!
Again, I think it's turtle bias, but go ahead. Jen?
Kalani Corbett, and it's actually my favorite piece of the whole round.
Whoa! Big words. Morgan?
I'll go with Kalani Corbett as well, but I did appreciate some of the review of Montez Jones. Your comments helped kind of turn me around a little bit on that. I didn't realize that ice was actually being broken. It made a lot more sense afterward. But I still got to give it to Kalani.
Okay, I love Kalani. I think she's a fantastic artist. I think she's a really sweet young woman. I root for her success tremendously. There's no question that I think Montez Jones deserves to win this. He gets my vote for this. I think he put together a piece that is technically proficient, great color, great setup here. But you know, Kalani is one of these young talents that you get to look at. When you get to be my age, you can see some of these young people, and you kind of sit back. You don't rush it. You don't feel any need to rush it. You sit back because you know you're looking at someone who's going to be a superstar one day, and that's going to be Kalani. And so I'm happy for both of these young people that they get a chance to do this tournament. I don't know who's going to advance, but my vote does go to Montez for this. Folks, again, if you want to alter that, you can. The vote Team A button is right there. You can click on it. It'll take you right to the voting procedure, and you can choose who you think should advance and help impact our decisions. All right, so folks, again, here's what's going to happen. We've said our piece. We've given some very consequential breakdowns of what we think each creator did great and did poorly. Now it's up to you. It's up to our analytics. It's up to some other factors that we look at to determine who the winner will be. Later today, around 10 a.m., between 10 and 10:30 a.m., you will see the winners announced. You will see the 16 artists who remain, what we call the Sweet 16. And in that bunch, you will then see who they are going to go up against. You'll see who round 3 matchups they will have, and you'll see what the theme will be. And I can tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, the theme is going to be completely different. So, again, this is a presentation of Saturday AM, the world's most diverse shonen manga anthology. We hope that you appreciated it tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. You learned a little something from it. You were entertained. More importantly, we hope that you support these independent creators, both those who work with Saturday AM and Saturday PM, and those who took their time and took a lot of sacrifice and effort to create these really intriguing pieces of art tonight. Every single creator tonight deserves your respect. It takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of steel. It takes a lot of personal passion to put yourself out there like this. There are a lot of people who'll be critics of us and critics of these folks on our YouTube and on various social media tonight and tomorrow and the days and weeks to come, who don't have any of the fortitude that these folks have or that my creators have to do what they do in the public space, knowing they're going to get criticized, knowing that they're trying to compete against people who are far better talent in some cases, far better supported financially in some cases. It takes a lot of heart to do what our guys do, to do what these people do. I hope that tonight's experience will give each of you guys a proper appreciation for great artists and the work and the effort they go through to produce art. With that being said, again, we are Saturday AM. My name is Frederick Jones, founder and publisher of this great magazine and this great group of creators. Jen, any words from you?
No, I guess I do have a little bit. I had a whole lot of fun. All the art is incredible, and I hope it inspires other people watching to draw as well. And yeah, try and catch up on Zero King of Thieves and issue 74 of Saturday AM.
Morgan, any words from you?
Yeah, this was a phenomenal round. You know, even the first round, I think that there was some really good talent, and it was definitely some hard choices. I'm looking forward to the next round. I hope to be a part of the judging team again. I was glad to be through the whole round this time and to kind of share my final thoughts about it. So thanks for tuning in and for participating as well. You guys did great.
Anthony, any final words from you?
This was a fun round. I am a terrible judge. Get issue 82. I'm in it. And Jay Oden is about to dethrone white manga.
What's that?
Jay Oden is about to dethrone white manga. I'm calling it.
Oh, wow. Big words, big words. We got other creators coming, man. But anyways, all right. Well, folks, again, these are 3 fantastic creators. I've gotten the chance in building this company to meet some extraordinary people, and I am incredibly humbled every time I get to interact with creators of the ilk of Jen and Morgan and Anthony. It is fantastic to build something with people of this caliber. Likewise, I appreciate the creators who took time out to register and become a part of this tournament. This is not easy. The stakes are very high in terms of getting a chance to win, prizes and money and an Apple iPad. But again, we have amazing sponsors. Again, a shout out to Plask, makers of Comic Draw, the app for creating comics on iPad. 21 Draw, who has a great tutorial program for creating, for doing better art. And then, of course, Illo Sketchbooks, who make amazing, durable sketchbooks for the tactical, physical artist who wants to draw on paper. Do that with Illo Sketchbooks. We've got fantastic support. We've got fantastic subscribers. And folks, Saturday AM issue number 82 is fantastic. Check it out. Issue 83 comes out next week. March Art Madness will be here again next week with round 3 review. And we will be having our podcast, our new podcast, Saturday AM Daily. We'll have a new episode out, I think, Tuesday. So check that out. And that's it, everybody. So thanks again. This is Saturday AM. You can go to our website at www.saturday-am.com to learn more. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.